Russia was the Union of Soviet Social Republics. And they'd say, oh, but aren't you so glad that you're in America? I said, well, I know a lot of Russian filmmakers, and they have a lot more freedom than I have. All they have to do is be careful about criticizing the government.
Good morning to most, good afternoon to others, and good evening to our viewing audience across the pond. My name is Jason Miles, and welcome to another episode of Pop Life, or maybe we'll start calling it The Year in Music, because this is a show where Conan and I go over. There was an article that came out maybe about 9 years ago about the 15 greatest years of music. And Conan and I have been going over these great years of music and asking the question, was X year the greatest year of music? So far, we added a year actually. We added 1993. That was not a year, but 94 was. So we've done 1993, 1994. And so far, by the response to the way you guys download playlists, 93 has the most downloads, surprisingly, of all these years. But we've done 1993, 1994, 1984, 1982, 1971, and 1967, and 1979. Wow, we've knocked out quite a few years. And today, we're doing the year of my birth, 1977. Was there a better year? No, there wasn't. What happens in 1977? I'm born. Conan's born. Star Wars is born. Elvis dies. Disco blows up. Funk reaches its pinnacle. The new wave of British heavy metal starts to really get good. I mean, come on. Punk rock. Dude, 1977. 1977. Is it the greatest year? I think so. I think we can just, there's no reason to do the show anymore. Slam dunk it from here. 1977. Like, seriously. Rumors comes out in 1977. Has Fleetwood Mac done a record anywhere near as good as Rumors? I don't think so. Steely Dan's Asia comes out in 1977. That right there, that should be enough for you. Earth, Wind, and Fire has maybe their greatest record with their biggest black yacht rock hits. So seriously, why are we even bothering talking about any of these other years? Give a damn about the Beatles. 77. Funk and rock are dominating the charts, as well as a genre that I actually really dig. Country and outlaw country. Take This Job and Shove It. 1977. So you tell me, is there a better year? I don't think so. 1977 stands as a watershed moment in music history, a year where the cultural and sonic landscapes were dramatically reshaped. It was a time when the raw energy of punk collided with the infectious rhythms of disco, while the thunderous riffs of the new wave of British heavy metal began to rumble beneath the surface. This was also the peak of what we now refer to as a classic rock, as classic rock, sorry. A period when icons like the Beach Boys were still releasing music, even as the genre itself began to shift under the weight of emerging sounds. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, met his untimely demise in 1977, symbolizing the end of an era. At the same time, outlaw country was staking its claim in the American South, and funk music was reaching its zenith with its groove-heavy, politically charged anthems. The economic and political climate of 1977 was equally tumultuous. The world was grappling with the aftershocks of the 1973 oil crisis, and economies were struggling with stagflation, a rare combination of stagnation and inflation. In the United States, President Jimmy Carter was in the early stages of his administration dealing with rising unemployment, energy shortages, and the aftermath of the Watergate scandal, which had left a deep mistrust in government. Globally, the Cold War continued to cast its long shadow, influencing everything from military expenditures to cultural exchanges. As we delve into the music of 1977, we'll explore how these economic and political forces shaped the sounds and messages of the time. We'll discuss how punk's DIY ethos was a response to the bleak socioeconomic conditions, how disco's hedonism offered an escape from the harsh realities of the era, and how the new wave of heavy metal reflected a growing disillusionment with the mainstream. We'll also look at how these genres influence one another and how the legacy of 1977 continues to resonate in today's music scene. Also, I want to add, as usual, after about an hour or so, we'll wait for Conan to get here. Maybe an hour and 10. We'll open up the phone lines. You guys can tell us what you think. What were your favorite albums of this year? What makes 1977 a great year for you? As someone says, we all agree television had the best album. No, I do not agree with that at all. Not even close. Is Marquee Moon a good song? Sure. Best album? No. I don't know. Two Stranglers albums, yes, and they're on the playlist. The playlist, you say? Jason, where's the playlist? Well, here, I'm gonna grab it real quick. Oh, and my computer wants to think. I'm gonna link it here in the chat comments. Bam! Now, I don't know how many people are watching right now, but however many people are watching, click that link right there in the comments. Here it is in the chat. And download this playlist. It took me way too long. I was up at 6:30 in the morning because I fell asleep trying to find all the albums that were released in 1977. Usually I try to put every release in there. There were so many releases in 1977. It was ridiculous. You would think there'd be more in the 80s, but it felt like the mix of maybe there's a mix of pure cocaine and capitalist production that says, hey, we need more funk records. Apparently, we made a couple of bucks on this George Clinton guy that just released 29 albums from the same 18 musicians. Let's find every black guy that can go waka chicka waka chicka waka chicka, and then just give him a record deal. Let's do it. And then we're gonna find any white guy with long hair and bell-bottom jeans that has a distorted guitar, and they have two guitar players. They have to have two guitar players with Gibson Les Pauls, and if they can do dual leads, dual octave leads, give them a record deal. And then if we can find a white guy that played in Buddy Holly's band or was somehow affiliated with the good old days of rock and roll, has maybe a few warrants and a massive cocaine problem, let's give that person millions of dollars and a record deal. And let's make sure none of these people ever really tour, because we don't really care, which I find really interesting. Conan and I talked about this. I can't remember the year we were talking about. Maybe it was 82, which was the last show we did. And there was a couple people that had 2 records out that year. So many bands have 2 records out. And again, let's go into the Wayback Machine of what the landscape looked like. If you're on a major label, you're recording in major label studios in New York or LA. Nashville was country at this point in time, and it's not and Austin definitely wasn't what it is today when we think about musical hubs. So you don't really have that. I mean, there's studios anywhere in America still, but there's like a handful of places where people are recording, right? And you got to book time. And with all these artists, how do you have time? And this is also an era where records are selling a lot. The album has proven to be profitable. And now we have a formula for the album. We're going to put the single here. Usually the title of the album is going to be the first track, so people know where the single is. There's a lot of records that are full of filler. Going through this list, and I want to say this again, I don't know all these bands. There's 30 hours of music. Here's a test to do. And I know most people here listen to Spotify. And if you have some sort of like political reason why you don't listen to Spotify, your reason isn't political. It's funny. But if you listen to Spotify, you can look at how many songs you liked, right? You're listening to a record and you click like, I like, oh yeah, Thriller. I like Thriller. Yeah. Purple Rain, you like it. I'm surprised at how much recorded music is on Spotify, because again, a lot of these records aren't hits, and not to have a hit in 1977 is very different not to have a hit in 2024. When you hear album sales numbers, remember those numbers are greatly distorted because streaming numbers are in there. So when you look at like pure sales, people don't really sell that many records anymore. So we're talking about an era too. And this is why like older people may not know every record, even from their own era, because you had to buy that record, right? And we didn't own every record that cost money, or CD or cassette, or in this case, 77 8-track. So it is kind of cool to have the history of recorded music right there at your fingertips. And as I'm pulling up these like super rare things, like, oh, here's this artist from Japan that released one album and it happened to be in 1977. Here's this person from, Papua New Guinea that released, 2 weird reggae records in 1977. Let's see if they're there. And I'm surprised so much stuff is there. That being said, in looking for I couldn't find the playlist, right? Because I had to finish it. I just said, F it. I was like, I think I pretty much hit every major artist that released an album and tons of not major artists, because I swear to God, I don't know what it is about this show. You guys you forgot this one thing. Like, dude, there's 20 hours of music on there. And you're bitching about the thing I forgot. But anyway, people are saying Kiss, Love Gun. Yes. Kiss has 2 records in 77. Kiss Alive, 2, and Love Gun. I only like 2,300 songs. I was shocked. I was like, considering how many songs I've put on these playlists and how much I'm like, oh, that's really cool. How many playlists I've made. I kind of listen to the same handful of songs over and over. So that's another fun thing about this show. You get to get out of your comfort bubble and listen to things you wouldn't normally listen to. That being said, my co-host is here. Am I wearing this shirt on his behalf? Am I wearing this shirt because I love Arnold Schwarzenegger? You'll never know. Please welcome my brother from 1977, the Conan Neutron.
Right. Undefeated. Yeah, Conan the Barbarian ain't got nothing to do with me other than my name being mispronounced for most of my entire life because of that. I had a real chip on my shoulder about that for a long time. Like I refused to engage with the comics, the movies, any of it.
Oh, really?
I was tortured by that, to put it bluntly. Like the entire time I was a kid, I despised it to the core of my being. And then I gradually got over in the 20s. I was like, all right, I'll watch it. I watched the first movie and I was like, all right, that's good. But like, it's ruined for me for forever. Like I never, you know what I mean?
Because you know why? My name was one of the more popular names of 77 and 76.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the horror movie series comes out,
oh yeah. Jason Voorhees.
It's not like
that's it. So I appreciate that, but there's a special circle of pain when you have a quote unquote unique name.
Yes.
Where like even there's that. I mean, that's something where like that's something where you'll have people that are kids. Of course, they're going to do it. But if you have a unique name, you'll have like authority figures doing it. I've corrected sitting senators of like, no, you're pronouncing it wrong, and then they pronounce it wrong again. I'm like, that's not how it's pronounced. That's a different name. Like I can do this all day, and then eventually they just are like, ooh. But anyway, yeah, that's got nothing to do with anything. The playlists are cool. Playlists are really good. They're awesome. They're fantastic. I think that it's notable too. These discussions I think are very important. And again, it isn't just like you forgot this, you forgot that. What about this? What about that? That's great that like the chat's chiming in. Sometimes it's even relevant. But from my perspective, maybe there's a podcast that just does this. I don't know. I think this is the only show that has this level of in-depth discussion.
Yeah.
About this kind of thing in this motif that exists. If there's another one, great. I'd love to hear it.
From two people that have been in the industry that have actually had record deals that, you know, also are friends with people that are bigger names in the industry. So we do have insight into the superstar world and not just the underground world of toiling.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Because again, it's coming from, you know, like the current and former working musician, lifetime music lovers and music nerds. And honestly, like, you know, I did this stuff all the time. In when I was working in record stores, as I talked about in the past. You know, I ran a internet radio station for like 7-8 years. You know, and then again, like every day continue to make music, tour, et cetera, et cetera. And it's something that you'll have to know. You have to know why you care about the person who's talking about stuff. And my joke with this is I don't have to. This is a show I don't really have to prepare for. And one of the reasons because I've been preparing my whole life. Right. So that's kind of that's like the big thing where
you know what's funny? I think the same way, and I get excited for these shows because it's like, okay, I don't have a lot of reading, and then so you know,
but then you make it into work, right? Because that's what we do.
Into work. Yes, I made this playlist, Conan, and I started it off when I told you.
But I was just gonna say, but I as much as like the playlists are wonderful, they're great. I hope that people do enjoy the shows and listen to the podcast because it isn't just like us reading off from a list or something like the listicle style shows do. Like, I mean, it is like a interesting show. Quite frankly, like I mean, I'm biased. Because I'm on it and we're the ones that do it, but I think the discussion themselves are very valuable and interesting. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. But
as far as comments go, there's been some positive comments, so I'm actually excited about that, and I do want to keep doing this. I feel like we can expand on some of these years as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. Revisit.
I'm also in the process of
shootout. Well, that's kind of violent. Maybe we could call it I don't know, like doing brackets or something. You like sports, right? So
I'd like, you know, I will walk to Milwaukee.
They do brackets in sports. I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I love sports. I want to send a shout out to there's a few things that happened. I want to say that before we go on with the show that I think we should acknowledge. First of all, happy birthday, cousin Keenan. Also, Jack Russell from Great White died, and Greg Ginn
Greg Ginn?
Yeah.
When? This morning?
Yesterday.
What the?
Yeah.
Wow. I guess that's how you show I'm not terminally online. Good Lord.
I happened to go on as I was putting this together. I used my laptop to put the playlist together, and I saw why can't I remember his name? He played in Merv, the guitar player for Merv.
Brian Kehoe.
Why can't I
Oh.
really hope Brian Kehoe's not watching because he's gonna punch me.
He's gonna tune right out.
He's like,
bastard.
Motherfucker, I gave you all those strings. Like,
how dare you?
Kehoe wrote the nicest tribute to Greg Ginn. He was like, when I met him, I was a metal guy. I didn't give a damn about anything he was doing, but he kind of set the standard for independent music and how to do things independently without major labels and using the major label machine. And they signed with the local and did a lot of stuff on their own. And he went to say, you wouldn't have bands like REM if it wasn't for people like Greg Ginn.
Oh yeah, I mean, like they created the touring circuit, as we know, the independent touring circuit. It literally did not exist between the. I mean, you can give some credit to DOA as well, but I mean, it's like, yeah, it's crazy. I'm still, I'm kind of in shock at that. That's crazy, but yeah. Well, and there was a momentous Gina Rollins died this year.
Gina Rollins,
who's one of my favorite
great
actresses. She's freaking incredible. So I mean, but people die also too. So
But still, we're hitting an age where mortality is really kicking us in the testicles.
Yeah. Anyway, but this is our year, man. This is 77. It's
like I was telling people before the show started, as you were still getting here, I was like, look, these are things that happened in 77 that make a great year. I was born, you were born, Star Wars was born, Elvis died.
Yeah.
Punk emerged. Punk is born for the most part. As we know it.
Yeah, as we know it, right?
As we know it. I always want to add as we know it, because someone's going to be like, but raw power by this. You know what, dude? Don't be that guy.
Yeah, well, and it's also, again, it's doing this with a crowd is always interesting because everybody wants to wants to talk about the thing they want to talk about. They want to talk about the artists they want to talk about, et cetera, et cetera. And they're just in time. And if when you're formatting a show, when you have a conversation going, you can't, you're going to get the show as it is. You're not going to necessarily get the show that you want. By the way, Greg Kinn, K-I-H-N, not Greg Ginn. I misheard G-I-N-N. Because I was talking about Black Flag, and I think people are thinking that's talking about Black Flag, and that's
my life's in jeopardy.
Yeah. Greg Kinn is a totally different dude.
Yes. I'm not.
I did know that. I'm sorry. I'm missing a step this morning already. So, but Greg Ginn still alive, probably still smoking pot and ripping off bands.
Damn.
SSC baby. Ask literally anyone on that label.
Apparently, was a really nice guy.
Yeah.
Did you ever know him in the Bay Area?
No, I did not. I had friend.
Did you ever meet Fogerty?
Fuck, I wish. We even practiced in the bayous of El Cerrito and in Victory.
In the bayous of El Cerrito. What makes that joke, like, if you guys are CCR fans, John Fogerty is from El Cerrito, California, which is actually where my mother lives, my grandparents live, where I grew up a big chunk of my life. It's right next to Richmond, California. It's right next to Berkeley. It's a very nice.
It's like Berkeley, Albany, El Cerrito, and then it kind of goes on.
Then it goes into
Richmond.
Yeah.
It's that Cocoa County and all that. Yeah.
But where he's from, there's no country, and is there even? Yeah, there's no water near there.
It's just Albany had Philip K. Dick, right? And we're talking about Albany, California, and Albany, New York, East Coast centric people. And that's about it. That's like Albany's only real claim to fame. And then El Cerrito, it's pretty much like Metallica was there for a short time, and like the Fogerty Bros, like Creedence is from there. But like, when you think
it's pretty cool though.
It's pretty great. I mean, like, I almost went to go see. He's playing a show. He's doing like a solo tour, and I actually was like, you know what? I think I would go to that. But I was like, oh, I don't like going to big shows, and I don't know. It's not even like that close, et cetera, et cetera. And then like And then like we scheduled a moving extravaganza episode. So I was like, okay, great. That's fine. I'll just do that. But I would love to see John Fogerty live. I don't know if you like his autobiography is probably one of my favorite. It's top 10, if not top 5 that I've ever read. It's really good. He's I think it's called Fortunate Son. But people that are into credence at all should definitely read it, or just the autobiography format. Yeah, I would. Christ,
I would love to check it out.
Get him on Protonic, man. Like seriously, like
I mean, he's still walking around.
I know. I just gotta get him.
I think the last I heard he lives in Hercules.
Hercules.
That's what I heard. I don't know how true it is. This is what I heard. Word on the street is, if
you like, he's a guy that unless you knew, you'd be like, oh, that's just some guy. Like he has barbecues and whatever. He'll help you change your tire or whatever. You know, I mean,
did I tell you that happened to my friend? My friend from high school. He was on vacation with his family, like his wife and his kids in Hawaii, and they rented a car and had a flat tire, and Steven Tyler happened to be there and helped them change their tire.
Shut the front door. That's amazing.
And they didn't know who he was, and so they were like, "This guy kind of looks." Because like this guy looks. There's something about this guy.
Someone's cool aunt helped me change my tire.
I think that's what my boy thought it was. He's a black dude. He's like, I don't know who this.
That's fucking awesome.
Because Steven Tyler now doesn't look like looks like a lady. Run DMC Steven Tyler.
Yeah, like unique look, but handsome dude. But that's gradually turned into the fact that.
So they did take pictures.
He does a lesbian bookstore owner at this point.
It's so
I'm not trying to throw shade.
Pictures, Conan, of Steven Tyler changed. They finally realized who it was.
What a great story. That's awesome. I think that also we have there's a lot of talk about Creedence in the book. It's not all about Saul Zaentz, by the way. You look at that run of records Creedence Clearwater Revival did. It was just boom, 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 like one a year, and they're just to this day timeless records. Pretty incredible. And then there was that one where those other guys were hey, we want to write songs too. We're sick of you getting all the credit. We're sick of you getting all the money, because publishing, right? Which is funny to think about now, right? And John Fogerty is like, sure, go right ahead. I'm all for it. Let's go. And they did. And results, not great, folks. Not great at all.
I wonder if that's the Hall & Oates thing.
It is. I don't know if you've listened to that record.
Like one guy is writing the hits and someone else is writing the album filler.
Well, and there's something to being a utility player that for some reason a lot of people can't hang with it or don't want to hang with it. They want to be something else, but not everybody should be a working songwriter. I'm not saying don't write songs for sure, but if you're in what is one of the biggest bands of the world for a while, right? That, and you're I want to have some songs on the record so I can have some hits too, and I'll get the money. And it's okay, but are you sure that's how that's going to work out? Because it didn't at all, to be clear. And that record we listened to on a Conan and the Secret Friends tour. I don't know where we're going, right? New York or something. I was like, let's just listen to this record, because I know I've heard it. I don't remember anything about it other than the fact that I didn't like it. And it's dreadful. The drummer has one where he's yep, and I was we were dying, man. Talk to JB. We were just we kept replaying it. And I'm not a hate listener kind of guy. I'm it bums me out to listen to stuff that isn't good. But I was explaining to the guys this whole thing of this record is a weird story, because everybody was because we listened to just a ton of Creedence hits, some playlist I have, right? I'm God, even their B-sides are just total bangers. And I was yeah, but did you ever hear that one that isn't? And they're what? What are you talking about?
But you know what? That's a good, because I was saying this before you got here. The album format really kicks into gear in the mid 70s, right?
Right. And Creedence is wrapping up around 72. So but it's really all about the album.
So
they're talking about that a lot, right?
They're making singles, and you got to make hits for the radio. And maybe he just had dialed in the hit machine for the radio, because there's something about listening to these records outside of bands. For me, and this is just my personal opinion, people like Stevie Wonder, I think, can go into the studio and craft a mosaic of freaking music
Oh yeah.
and make a beautiful record from track one to the final track, and it's not a filler. There's so much filler you hear with a lot of this stuff because it feels like
Right.
there's somebody going, "Where's the single? All right, that's a single. All right, okay,
Yeah,
new
yeah.
record, man. We need 8 more. We need you know."
You got a jam? Let's fucking jam, man. Yeah. No. But you're right, because there's people like Prince and like Andy Partridge or like any given Beatle or what have you, that just can like crank them out, and they're consistent and they're awesome, and sometimes the prolific nature can be hurtful to a career, but most of the time, especially in these days, we're like, no, like look at Pink Floyd, right? Like Pink Floyd just cranked them out, and they were all. My favorite is metal, meddle, metal, not metal, and but it's like that was pretty successful. Wasn't successful as Dark Side, wasn't successful as The Wall, but I mean, like look like Roger Waters and those guys, like like they were making records. They were designed to probably be high and to be listened to as a collective. And that's something that I think it's cool. Like I kind of like those days. I like those types of bands, those types of records. I think that I mean, we're talking about 1977. Animals comes out this year. Yeah, that's a perfect example. That's another not just a meat and potatoes record. Like it's solid stuff. You have someone like David Bowie, right? That like he would have singles, but he was all about, especially in that period around this time. Low is this year, and that's the like some guy's 11th record or something along those lines. And he was trying all the different stuff, like all the Berlin stuff, and just trying to like make different types of music that and keep it vital and vitality. But by the same token, there was that, especially in 77, this massive amount of just arena rock excess, right? And some people attributed that to bands like Pink Floyd. Johnny Rotten wearing the Pink Floyd shirt that says "I hate Pink Floyd" on there, right? Which is more of a punk rock thing than anything. And then later on, he was like, actually, Pink Floyd's pretty good. Like I was just being salty. But there was a lot of kind of like weird, I don't know, like there wasn't a lot of danger in a lot of big records. Like, okay, I'm gonna light them up a little bit. I like a lot of Electric Light Orchestra.
Okay.
And Out of the Blue comes out this year.
He does.
Right. I like Out of the Blue. I should say I like a lot of it. I mean, I think Turn to Stone's great. That's a great single, like Sweet Talking Woman. But I mean, look, not everyone's gonna want to hear Mr. Blue Sky, right? You know what I mean? Like it's and there's the Jeff Lynne ELO things. Like Jeff Lynne writes these really catchy, lush, beautiful, huge sounding songs, right? And then puts all these adornments on them, all this production, extra production, extra instruments, orchestral stuff, like cowbell, vocoder, like all of this, like crazy stuff. But like, it's easier to appreciate now, but think about like the mindset of like, this is what rock and roll is. Well, yeah, it's cool, but does it rock? Kinda, I guess. I guess it does.
It does not, mean, dude. I tried to, and also
I'll give you "Don't Bring Me Down." Don't bring me down.
I think did I put that? Is that what I put on there? Did I put "Don't Bring Me Down"?
Yeah, I don't. I think that's probably the best example of their rock song. Like Mr. Blue Sky is a banger.
I don't. Is that "Don't Bring Me Down" on that record?
I'm trying to look.
I don't think it is. I don't
have it in front of me. I think it's. I think you might be right.
If it was, I would have put it on there because I did have to go through that. I was so shocked. Like I want you guys to take a look at this. First, before we take a look at the actual, excuse me,
That's what I get for picking a conversational topic without having the materials in front of me. But
well, here I'll help you out. I literally put talking points for us. The rise of
79 is Don't Bring Me Down. Sorry, just I want to do a real time fact.
It was Don't Bring Me Down.
79 is
79.
it's on Discovery. It's on the one.
So yeah, it wasn't on that record.
So this is like Mr. Blue Sky. You know,
that record was Sleepy Time. Yeah, that was a sleep time record.
Look, it's some peak white people music, but I like it.
So peak white people music. Okay, before I get into the punk conversation, there's one thing I didn't acknowledge on the intro, and I was gonna tweak it, and I was like, nah, F it. We'll talk about it in the show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say peak white people music because me and Cindy, when we would tour, she really liked the AM Gold stuff.
Like Bread and stuff.
Oh yeah, America.
Oh,
and I don't mind it. I don't. You would if you would have hopped in that van, you would have been like, okay, we're listening to Belle Biv DeVoe, and an hour later we're listening to AM Gold.
You're not throwing on Mare's Bow, right? I mean, I get it. I tour too. Right? You know? But I would listen to Captain Beefheart for like 2 hours. No, you don't. You think that.
But you would think a band would play that. You wouldn't want to jump into someone's van and precious and few.
You're like, oh man, they're chiller than I expect them to be.
You're like, oh wow, these guys aren't so wild after all, huh?
I thought they were like wild and crazy rock and rollers, but they're just sitting around listening to this dentist music over here.
Just rocking out to dentist, like, God damn, you're the change. But I forgot.
Middle eight.
There was records in the 70s. And I'm an album cover fan. I love all album covers. If there's crazy science fiction stuff on there, if there's monsters, I love funk album covers because there's always like a tit for no reason. You're like, oh wow, you just went for it and just put a tit, and you would just find a name. The record had nothing to do with titties. It'd be called like Oil Can, and it'd be like oiled up titties with an oil can in between the titties. And they're natural titties, so they're going every which way possible, which is cool to me. And
there's a great the documentary about, sorry to interrupt, but the Hypnosis, the art collective Hypnosis, who did a lot of those crazy like Pink Floyd and like Led Zeppelin, like those album covers of those days, where they all like, we're gonna go to a place and like stage a scene and like photograph, like getting like, let's get all these naked children to like be on this like weird looking rock thing that you know it is crazy. Like, it's called Squaring the Circles, the name of this documentary. It's all about the kind of stuff you're talking about, where it's like just the idea of like the album art, the album cover being like such a big deal, and like what they did with that, and the fact that these guys were like living like rock stars as well, and they were like the album cover guys.
The album, dude, album art. That's what Slash's dad did. He did album art.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Album art for me was so important for the record, but there were these records also by people with no band, and it'd be like a solo guy like
Alan Parsons, or like
you wish it was just Alan Parsons. It'd be like Melvin Hayworth, and it's just a dude in a one-piece jumpsuit.
Yeah,
and he'll just be standing like this.
This is my record. Thank you for listening to it.
Or just a white dude with long hair and bell bottoms on the beach, with the sun setting right behind his hair. Or
feeling like, some kind of way or something. Exactly. Right, exactly.
Like, you could look at the cover and be like, okay, this is going to be some great AM Gold.
Yeah, you kind of know looking at. I actually love that style of album design, and I've joked about doing it myself, and I'm like, I don't
bring it back, dude. Bring back.
I don't think I could do it for a quote unquote real record, but like I do love that like guileless like it would. But
if I had the self-confidence just to be like one dude,
like, like you in like a white suit or something,
yeah,
you're just like
suit, and he's like standing on the beach. Yeah. Cool breeze running.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, it's gonna have some well, and it's not like, but the thing is, like, you can't do it with like a trace of irony or anything. It has to be just like guilelessly.
You got to do it.
You know,
it's
got to be like no, I'm a cool MFer, man.
When you look at those album covers, if it's a black person, they're always very jovial.
Right. It's a party. They're having a good time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No,
you're right. Tuesdays.
Well, and I'm glad you're bringing up album covers though, because again, like, and the reason I'm not just crowbarring in Hypnosis to specifically speak about Pink Floyd or Led Zeppelin. Which Pink Floyd actually, Animals, that's a Hypnosis album cover. That's the one with like the factory, and it's all kind of crazy looking. But I mean, they'd put out, this is like right in their heyday, right? They did like a UFO record, Sammy Hagar, Bad Company, the aforementioned ELO record that I talked up here, Gabriel, yes. Status Quo, which was a bigger deal than people today realize. Paul McCartney solo, Moody Blues, like they did so many record covers at the time because a record cover is a big deal.
Yes,
huge deal. And
that
so
was
these were the guys.
There was
that
no
made
MTV.
Exactly, because you saw it like, wow, what does that sound like?
Yeah.
Or
if you have
wow,
an end cap,
to that.
you have an end cap at a record store.
Yeah.
You better have a cover that catches somebody's eye.
Oh, you
that's how I'm going to pick up your record.
Over. Yeah.
That's like an interesting thing to think about.
I still kind of behave that way, by the way. Like when we're putting together album covers, I know it's not the world we live in. I know people are going to see it on like, little half-inch thing on their phone that they barely look at or whatever. But I still behave as if someone is like doing the thing I used to love in the record store. We're like, wow, that looks cool. I wonder what.
And there's
that
no
sounds
template.
Like.
And you know what, Conan? There's no template that you can just copy and paste. I mean, maybe there were templates to some of the album art people.
I mean, there's definitely like 90s tropes where it's like, okay, everyone's crouching. There's a dude like throwing hands at the camera. Like it's like, all right, we get it. Like,
what did Chris Contos was on the show and he talked about back in the 80s they were always doing the photos where they were holding the balls.
There's a lot of balls involved. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's the classic like, oh, here's a cool live shot, which is done to a great extent.
I love the live shot.
Like think of Raw Power, right? I mean, it's like one of the best. It's like that album cover's amazing. We talked
London
about
Calling
yeah, absolutely.
Raw Power is an iconic album cover. Kiss Alive.
I'm sad I was off mic for the Kiss discussion because Kiss Alive, first of all, is one of the greatest quasi live records, and the fact that it is a live record that they decided, actually, let's put on some overdubs and sweeten up the vocals here. Where and like as much as everyone can and probably should bag on Gene Simmons, genius. Because people say they want to hear a live record, but man, you want to hear these men fuck up? You want to hear these men dealing with bad sound? You want to hear them like
the best live recording for me of all time? Purple Rain.
Yeah, well, exactly. Totally. Because like you think you want to hear it. What you want to hear is like live energy is what you want to hear. And that's something that there's a distinction. Anyone's listened to a bunch of bootlegs, even some of their favorite bands, it is so hard. It is so different listening to it in, like, for lack of a better term, a laboratory environment versus listening to it like in the moment and being in the world at large. And that's something that when does Frampton Come Alive? Frampton Come Alive is like the year before this.
Year before. You know what the record is called in 77? I'm In You. Peter Frampton, I'm In You. I'm going through.
I'm looking at the cover now. He's got like the shirts unbuttoned. He's like pulling a half hondo. Like he's like, hey,
he's in you. He's letting you know, hey, some of you kids out there, I'm your dad.
Oh my god,
I'm your dad.
This is where I kind of wish we had like visual accompaniment of the record covers in question.
I think we can pull it up on that here. Let's pull.
Dude, this is incredible. Like, and I know Peter Frampton. I mean, I don't know him personally. I'm saying like I know like everyone else. I know Frampton Comes Alive. I want you to show me the way. Do you feel like we do, baby? I love your way, right?
I was gonna put that last comment on the screen. I was like, oh, I think I might be in trouble.
I mean, look, it depends on what you're into, I guess. I don't know. You can catch them all. You can catch all them flies.
The 70s were a time where dudes felt the 70s to the 80s.
Steven Tyler
wear women's clothes. Let's wear boxes.
Yeah, Steven Tyler.
Crop tops. A lot of crop tops. A lot of grown ass men with hairy ass bodies. Nobody waxing, shaving a goddamn thing. Nobody did a crunch or a push up, and they felt real comfortable to wear a crop top and bell bottoms.
Arm hair looks like buckwheat in a headlock.
You know what I mean? Give no fucks. Like, I'm not shaving, waxing shit. Can you imagine in 1977 looking at a grown ass man in a crop top? Maybe you want to wax that before you go wax this shit. These girls are trying to braid it.
Ah. Ugh, thank you for that evocative.
Can you imagine? Tom Selleck was like, "Ooh, his hairy chest is so sexy."
Ugh.
I was like, "Man, how do we get the Wayback Machine to that era?"
I know. Let's get this werewolf.
Jesus, I'm over here trying to
I
find.
want.
I'm making contraptions to shave my back.
Yeah, I was gonna say I need someone who's hairy and whose flesh looks like uncooked chicken.
That's me. That's what I want.
Talk about myself.
I want a man look like he's wearing a fur vest.
Anyway, so yeah, I'm in you. Amazing. Comes out in 1977. That's almost that's almost a year and a half after Frampton Comes Alive, which of course it was basically more or less his high water career mark, because that's someone that dude put out a lot of records. I mean, I think that was like his 5th record or something, but it's again the rare example where like a live version is what kind of captured the imagination of people. Think of like Cheap Trick live at Budokan. Cheap Trick put out a lot of records, but that version, I Want You to Want Me, which is way revved up and live, versus the album version, which is kind of like almost cabaret.
You can go into the studio, and you're someone that actually makes a lot of records, and I don't know if you feel the same way. When you make a lot of records, regardless of how comfortable you are with your bandmates and the people you're making the record with your producer, with the environment in which you're making the record with, regardless, you can't get the same feel, especially if you're not recording live, if you're tracking properly. And then this is not a diss to people that track, as someone that literally has to track now. Recording thing. There's a different energy. And if you listen to those early Van Halen records, I think actually all the David Lee Roth records, I think they recorded live with like a barrier wall. And you can hear the bleed when you listen to like Roth's isolated vocal track.
And that's my preferred way of tracking, is like everybody plays together, right? And then like usually for me, like I'll go back and I'll redo the guitar, and like, you know,
you'll get a
vocals, forget about it. But like you get a
energy and tightness with that, I think. But when you start playing live, one thing you realize is, if we slow this down a couple BPMs, there's a groove here.
There's a groove to it that you're not gonna. Absolutely.
You know, okay, let's do a stop there, and then we'll start again. And you know, you'll do stuff live that you didn't think to do in the studio, because you're playing it. It's like working on a joke.
It's because you're workshopping the material.
You're workshopping the material. Right. And when you record a live record, you probably want to do it towards the end of a tour, when you're really locked in with the band.
Yeah,
you've got all the you know what you're going to say in between the certain songs. You kind of got everything down. And I get why what you're saying about Cheap Trick live at Budokan, because that's what, 4 years into their career.
Yeah, they have a few Budokan. Yeah, it may be
in their when I say in their career, as a signed mainstream band.
Yeah, that's the next year. That's 78. But also Heaven Tonight comes out in 78 as well. What comes out this year is In Color, which is actually one of my favorite records of theirs, and which does have I Want You to Want Me, but it's the one that's kind of jazzy. It's sort of like I want you to want me, be the boop boop boop. Like it's sort of like boppy, for lack of a better term. And the version they do on Budokan is just like rips. It's just like them at like their peak of their power, like absolute like rippers. And you know, this is, and so 77 In Color, that's their second record. And it's the first record, great, and it's rightly considered like a classic now, but people, it didn't like, you know, regionally it was popular, but it wasn't like, you know, critics liked it, but it wasn't like a huge hit or anything along those lines. And people came back to that record. But then also, like, you know, was He's a Whore going to be a hit? Probably not. You know, like, I don't know. In today's mindset, like, it wouldn't have mattered, but been like 77, it's like, okay. But Hello Kitties, that's like perfect pop perfection, like, as a great rock band. And In Color, like, I think it's recorded weird. And so did they, because they re-recorded it with Steve Albini, which it's never been released, but there's a bootleg of it that's around there, and it is awesome. Like, it's like, oh, this is maybe their best record somehow. But yeah, to answer your question, Budokan is like, it's their fourth record. You know, it was like not just successful in Japan. I mean, it was like people like it's like, oh, this band cooks,
That's what made people want to play Budokan.
right? Exactly,
Right?
absolutely. I want to.
Here you go, Conan.
Sign me
This
up.
is what you would have looked like had we been
Look at
born in
this
a different
man,
time,
Boston.
right? This is someone talked about Boston on the album cover
So much
inside,
hair.
right? This is what it was.
Well, and that's Tom Schultz's. It's like the Tom Schultz project. He didn't even have when that first record. He didn't even have a band, right? He just did it on his own. It was more or less like a studio construct, and then like at that point, it's released the year before this in '76, and it's like huge. It's like gigantic. And it's like, oh, I guess I better form a band. But it was just him and the singer guy. I think I can't remember the guy.
Is Saturday Night Fever 77?
Oh, I should know. I actually have the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. It was one of the first
Do you
records
really?
I ever bought. Yeah, it looks like shit and plays worse, but let me look and see. Saturday Night Fever. Which again, that's interesting because
You know what is on this playlist is John Travolta's solo record.
Oh man, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Well, Saturday Night
movie,
Fever is 77.
Yep.
So when it was in this, but yeah, Staying Alive and stuff like that. Like Bee Gees had like a huge career as sort of Blue Eyed Soul for like, I mean, like they had something like, I recommend the Bee Gees documentary. I think it's really good. But it does service to all the stuff that they did in like the 60s and like the early 70s, like all that kind of AM Gold kind of stuff, which is not, if you only know Staying Alive and like the other disco stuff, it's a big surprise. What I find completely disingenuous is they completely gloss over these Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band movie where the Bee Gees were the Beatles, and it was like,
yes, that was one of the favorite movie as a kid. By the way,
I have rarely seen something that glosses over such an important part in history, because they act like it didn't happen and then just move on to the next thing. And I think it's probably like a bone of contention for them. And that's the next year after this. Right. But like, again, so if people don't know, it's like, you know, what they call a jukebox comedy, right? With their songs in it. But like, speaking of Frampton, by the way, being in you, he's also in that, and because that's 78, so that comes along at the same time. But the, you know, and it's, as a movie, it's whatever. But the Bee Gees are in that, and yeah, it wasn't great, and it's not in the documentary. And that was the one thing about that documentary. I'm like, come on, really? I know it wasn't a good experience, but you're just gonna like not. Which just goes to show you that a lot of these things, when they get the buy-in from like the families and the artists and everyone's still alive, like sometimes you can kind of like miss big things. I would literally want to watch a documentary about the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band film. Like, I would be like, I'm in. Look, you got Bee Gees, you got Peter Frampton, you got Steve Martin is in that film. Like, just, I want to, you know, it's like Caddyshack. As much as I love Caddyshack, I would love to just to see a documentary about Caddyshack.
There is
the closest thing
about Caddyshack.
No, I think we're talking about is the thing,
about the people that made it.
What is that called? Unique and something or other. A futile and stupid gesture, right?
No,
or is it an actual? Because that's like kind of like a biopic, sort of like.
Is that, unless that's the movie where they talked about they were trying to get Rodney Dangerfield.
Will Forte as Doug Kenny. It's like the Doug Kenny thing.
No, it's a documentary, because they were talking about Rodney Dangerfield putting down
Caddyshack, the Inside Story TV movie,
putting down a line. They're like, how can we get you in the movie? And then he like looked at the script or something and threw down a line of blow and did it. It was like, I'm in. I was like, oh wow.
There's two of them. There's oh no, this is a book. Okay, there. All right. Well, I stand corrected. Let the record show. We have people just shouting out different. We should probably get to the
well, here, look, I want to bring this up. Right? If I don't bring this up, you and I are doing this show a disservice. An hour, 54 minutes in. The rise of punk as a reaction to economic despair and cultural stagnation. How bands like The Clash and the Sex Pistols gave voice to a disaffected youth. Talk about this for a second, Conan Neutron.
Oh man, I thought it was time to take a drink. Yeah, no, it's just
no, I have nothing to say.
we talked about 91 and the documentary, like the year punk broke, right? That is like a callback. History doesn't repeat itself, but sometimes it rhymes. Thing to 77, which is when everything explodes. The initial, not reenactment of punk rock, but the initial complete just reaction, I suppose, sure, to the overblown parts of rock that, like, even someone like, Queen, and I love Queen, it's considered like this, like, overproduced, like it didn't have the intensity that that people were craving, and people there's just like a disaffected youth, so on and so on. So that leads you to some incredible records. You got the Clash's first record comes out like in April, right? I mean, never mind the Bullocks, like when they finally got around to putting it out, right? It was October 77. Rocket to Russia, Ramones, so they weren't even like
Ramones had 2 records in 77.
That's right. Television comes out as well. So we're talking about bands that are like punk rock in ethos, if not necessarily in sound. You also have at the very end, right about right about when I'm being born, is when Pink Flag by Wire comes out, one of the Hallmark post-punk records. Because it's funny because everyone thought of everybody thought of punk rock as being like a moment in time that was going to be over, not as a musical genre to be around for forever, right? And then you even had someone like Iggy Pop with The Idiot, who was coming out, and
he had like 2 or 3 records
from the generation before. Yeah, but The Idiot's sort of like one of the Hallmark, like, okay, so Iggy's still cool, like we can still like him. Radio Birdman, Radio's Appear comes out. Runaways,
2 Runaways records,
and Blank Generation, Voidoids, Richard Hell and the Voidoids come out. I've had Ivan Julian on the show even. You're right. Leave Home came out that year too. Damned. The Damned, like one of my favorite.
Dead Boys.
People only kind of pay attention to their like later period stuff, but I think there's been a re-envisioning of the of the Damned. Yeah, Dead Boys, The Jam we mentioned, Heartbreakers. LAMF is like one of the great American punk rock records that comes out that year as well. Chrome, Alien soundtracks. You want to talk about stuff that sounds like from another planet? Jesus Christ! I mean, like it's they're freaking incredible. Talking Heads 77.
Yes,
that comes out, which is amazing. That's an iconic record. Stranglers.
Yep.
No More Heroes is like one of their best records that comes out around this time too, and they're coming from that weird melange of kind of like pub rock into punk that a lot of people, and I think Radis Norvegius came out the same year as well. So again, we're talking about like that Creedence thing, right? Of like bands not just putting out a record, but putting out like 2 records that are like all-timers that same year. Multiple ones doing that because it's just a fertile time, because people were like, oh, we're kicking in the doors here. We're kicking in the doors of like what's the big tag on people saw the Sex Pistols, right? There wasn't a lot of people at the shows, but every person that saw them started a band. And
I told you that story. There was a guy that Cindy and I met named Joey Heaton years ago, and he actually grew up in Manchester. And he was friends with the Buzzcocks. Nice. Like they all grew up together in the same area. And he actually ended up taking us to a Buzzcock show when they came to the San Francisco and played, and we met them all.
Respect, they always killed as a live act. I saw them in the 2010s, and I saw them like 97. They were both like, I was like, God, this is great. And they like pulled they pulled a couple songs from their like kind of like at the time reviled new wave record that I love. And I was like, hell yeah. And it was awesome. They were much respect. Unfortunately, Another Music in a Different Kitchen doesn't come out until 78, but they had an EP that came out this year.
Yeah, an EP, but I couldn't do EPs. No. There's too much. There's too fucking much. And then it gets muddled because of the way that list comes up. But anyway, he was there for that show because him and Pete Shelley booked that Sex Pistol show. He said it cost him like $100 to get the Sex Pistols to come up to Manchester. And I was like, was it crazy packed and all this stuff? He goes, no, it was not. He goes, it literally
like any other music loving person who's put on a show. You're like, man, I hope some people show up to this. And then you're like, all right, we got 20 people. We got a show. Let's do this.
he said no one was there. He said, but he goes, everyone that was there started a band.
Yeah, like if you just look at the results, right? 77 is where
Joy
that starts
Division,
to show up,
Morrissey, yeah.
and then that kind of course bleeds into 78 as well. But like you think of not just the hallmarks of the punk era, but the post-punk era, right? You have like
Mhm.
all of these bands that and in some cases it wasn't even the music itself, but it was just seeing like, well, if these dickwads can do this, I can do this. you know, and that's it seems so obvious now, right? But you have to understand that from a perspective of music, it's one of the reasons why whenever we cover these various years of music, I try to like advocate for the punk rock DIY world as much as possible, because history will always forget it unless there's powerful advocates for it, because it didn't follow the formula. It wasn't something where where it was always known that this is a thing you could do. Just the idea of like you can grab uh grab a guitar and a bass and some drums and just some people like near you, maybe even not even your friends, but you could just grind out something kind of cool and like have it be this pure expression of like angst or anger, or I mean anything really. But you didn't need someone to like sign you and give you a record deal. You could
Is
just
that
do it. No one could stop you from doing it.
but is that and this is where everything gets messy in the history, right? Because I
Mhm.
do agree that you need different people telling the story, right? We can't have everyone telling the story about the greatness of Elvis and the AM Gold and all this
Mhm.
other stuff that came out, right? Because there is some other records that come out at this time that aren't on major labels. But we also are having some advancements in technology that are enabling smaller home recordings.
Mhm.
And studios are aplenty.
Yeah, it
And
isn't something you
living
need
is
like a
cheap.
$20,000 basement budget to like record a demo, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
We talked about the one we did from the 60s. We kind of talked about a little bit about that, about that being like an impediment towards people expressing their
Like
art.
you had a clear barrier in the 60s. Like you really weren't going to leave the garage because how are you going to cut a record?
Yeah.
And who was going to pay to press it? And by the time we get to the 70s, those things are a little easier to do because of advancements in technology, and where a lot of these art schools are, where a lot of people are going and living, it's a little cheaper to live in the bowels of New York
Mhm.
than
Oh
it
yeah,
is now.
absolutely. It was a little more dangerous too.
It's a little but that danger becomes part of the thing that you can observe and then sing about, because again, times are changing. We're not really going to write revolutionary, we're not even going to attempt to write the great song because the wars are over. This is 1977,
Mhm.
right? So we're talking about internal crises, economic crises, the beginnings of neoliberalism, and what we're going to get with that, the shutdown of unions and privatizing of industries. This is that era that's coming out. But what I find interesting is, again, as someone that says, F it, I'll do it on my own. I can't do it on my own if it's not for certain advancements in technology that make it easier.
Right.
And I
That's
feel and I feel like that's also part of the outgrowth that people really don't talk about, because you don't have to go into a development hub that the industry has. Hey, we like your sound, Sex
yeah.
Pistols, and you guys got a cool.
We're gonna let you develop
We're
and
gonna let you develop. We're gonna pay you
yeah.
money to record until we think we hear a single,
Yeah.
and then we'll release it, and then we'll start grooming you. Yada 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 yada. You can
Yeah.
just throw it out.
Right, exactly. And in the case of something like Never Mind the Bollocks, first of all, to speak to your earlier point, like God Save the Queen was like a call to action and
Yes.
to a lot of, which again, whatever John Lydon has said, like in recent years, as he's gone, like whatever route he's gone politically, doesn't matter. It was a call to action in a way that had not been done before, of attacking an authority figure in a mocking way, paired with this music that sounded powerful and unique and like nothing else that people were hearing on the radio, which isn't to say that all big rock records at that time were bad at all. um,
Mhm.
it's we're not talking about the 90s right now, but yes, Charming Hostess, Idiot Flesh, both great. A lot of people don't realize that Rick Froberg from Hot Snakes and Jehu was actually briefly in Idiot Flesh.
I didn't know that.
Thank you. That's an unrelated anecdote to the unrelated comment. But the with you have an earnest expression of rebellion,
Mhm.
which it may like look, there's nothing rebellious about punk rock bowling, right? Like that, like if you want to go like see like all of the the bands that have like one dude and like a bunch of like 20-year-olds playing with them, playing like all like, you know, the punk rock songs. You can do that at that. It's not all that, but what I'm saying is that like I think punk rock was co-opted. We talked about this in the 91 episode. I can't remember.
93,
Well, we talked about how
Yeah.
the co-opting of punk rock and especially and how it became music for mini malls and
Yeah.
suburbs, right?
Yeah.
That's not the case here. This is like, well, in England, it's like kids on the dole that don't have any job prospects and are pissed at everything. And in New York, it's like it's not that much different other than the fact that they're working minimum wage jobs and, you know, because there's no dole, of course, because socialism. And they're just trying to like make a living for themselves and have a good time in like urban environments like New York, San Francisco, and LA both had scenes as well. But New York is the one as the media center that everyone always ballyhoos. But there were punk rock movements all over where they're just trying to make something cool.
There's a great documentary about Madame Wong's, by the way. In
Los
yeah.
Angeles.
So if you really want to like get into like why certain music blew up out of different regions, what's interesting about the Madame Wong's documentary is, how can I put this into words? There was no place for people to play, right? And these Chinese restaurants in Chinatown were like, we need to fill people in here because we just built these buildings, we built these restaurants. We're okay to have live music. But when the punk bands came in, they just wanted to F stuff up. And this woman was like, I don't really dig these guys effing stuff up.
Right, because they're breaking the stuff. Yeah,
she goes,
exactly.
I don't like the female fronted bands because when a female fronted band comes in here, the dudes go crazy and they act more wild when the women are fronting these bands. I don't dig that. And when bands like the Knack would come in, you're not getting the same reaction because they're bringing in different people. So she was like, I dig this. Get more of this and less of that. And that's how you get a band like the Knack blowing up out of SoCal because there's a place for them to play weekly. They're going to,
because they don't want to have fear play. You know, everyone like wrecks the place.
No, you don't want to have people wreck your spot. And it comes. That's how stuff like that comes out of it. And New York is a place where like we can go F stuff up at little ass CBGBs all day long. Yeah, and they're gonna let anybody.
It's gonna look exactly the same.
Yeah,
it's gonna look the same at the end.
And they're gonna let anybody play. But you get your shot, like Chris Condo's on here talking about Ruthie's Inn and how you need to have a place that allows bands to play that are not good on a Monday and a Wednesday until you get that Saturday slot.
Right.
And
proving ground. Well, and that's like there's 77 for the most part. The trail is being blazed.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why you have, when you're immersed in that culture, you have the certain, you know, CBGBs, like clubs where people are Maxes that they become like the stuff of legend, right?
The
like
Buhay Gardens.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that existed everywhere. And that's something that, you know, it may not have been, they're described as these like legendary mythical places. Right. And it's like oftentimes it's like, no, they would let us throw the shows there. That's all they did. They didn't do anything special. It wasn't some great thing, like wasn't some great magnanimous egalitarian effort. They were just like, sure, you'll bring in some people. They seem to drink. Great.
Yeah. And if they don't drink, we don't. Again, why do you like a band like the Knack? Those people have jobs and they're drinking.
Right, exactly.
Like, oh, I don't have to buy new silverware now. Okay. Yeah.
Well, and that's, you know, and there's an analog to it. You know, it's like the Vortex and like 100 Club and whatever. There's all kinds of ones in England as well, and we could just rattle on for that as well. But the important thing to note is that like all these inauspicious places, usually kind of like horrible sound system, you know, loose suggestion of a stage, whatever. That's where all of these bands that people think of as legendary happen, and they were just like today, doing the best they can with what they have. That like and established tropes that we still think of to this day, and it's just hard for people. I mean, I wasn't there. I was busy being like a newborn baby or not born yet in 77, right? Yeah, but you know, there's history has remembered it well, but it was not glamorous in any way, shape, or form.
No. When you talk to the actual people that were there, and they tell you the stories, like, oh, that place was gross.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, this place, or like when you
Toxic
and I were on
room
tour.
and CBGB is like like a cross corollary synonym.
There's that place that's like a super bougie bowling alley now. We played it when we were on
Highland
tour.
Park Bowl.
Highland
Yeah.
Park Bowl.
With
You were
Fatso
telling me,
Johnson,
you're like,
sure.
dude, the floor used to have like
Dude,
blood stains all over it.
it used to be mad sus. Like the power was like, you had to be careful where you plugged into. It would literally blow your amp or whatever you were plugging into it. Like, there was like a dudes getting shot outside, people shooting up outside. It was crazy. And was wild about that show is we had all these people from back in the day show up to see us. They were just like, I can't believe this was the same place. Like, and because that's how I felt too. I was like, yo, this was like a Wes Anderson movie. Like, what is happening here? Like, this place was like a place that, like, they were last
Dude,
seen
that place
at,
is so fancy. That place is so fancy. We went there for Ben Burge's birthday. I was like, hey, I want to bowl. Because when we were there, the bowling was free because you played.
For bands,
I
bowl
was
for
like,
free.
hey, who wants to bowl? Who wants to bowl?
Yeah.
I go to the guy and I was like, hey,
Here's your loan application. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, how much does it cost to bowl? He goes, $75 an hour.
Woo!
Shoes are extra. It's like, okay, that's an interesting price.
Yeah, well, it used to be called Mr. T's Bowl, is what it used to be called.
Well,
And
Mr. T,
you can
is
rock,
the man.
you can roll, but you can't bowl at Mr. T's Bowl. They had a bunch of BS like piled up on the lanes. They had like some mixing desk that had been there like for forever, like just like junk and garbage.
Oh, those lanes. Okay, so I am.
Highland Park Bowl looked like Wes Anderson.
I'm
like
a serious bowler.
Like a Tati movie.
Conan, I'm a serious bowler.
Oh, I know.
I used to bowl very seriously when I was a young person, and I was so disgusted by those lanes. They had divots. Those lanes looked like East Oakland
the
streets.
Surface streets.
I was like, there shouldn't be potholes in bowling lanes.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But it's there for kitsch. It's not there for you.
But it was there. The thing about Mr. T's Bowl, they were like, they'd let you do whatever you wanted. They throw whatever kind of show you want. They didn't care. They're like, sure. Whereas, that's gentrification for you in a nutshell. But anyway, it's got nothing to do with 77, other than the fact that the corollary there is that all these like hole in the wall venues that people feel like should be museum pieces now. It's like, no, they were just places they would let you do. They don't care what was happening. They would let you do whatever you wanted.
That's a good thing. That is a good thing.
You need those spaces. Absolutely. You have to.
But
you have to.
Going to today, going from 77, where you had these hole in the walls where whatever you're going to do, we don't care.
Mm-hmm.
To now, I don't even think you can have a whatever you're going to do, I don't care place anymore.
Well, because everything is so expensive that everyone needs to worry about their bottom line and they keep the doors open, right? So they can't. Yeah, you're not going to give out for Fridays and Saturdays to just anyone. You got to be somebody you know is going to bring money in. That's also going to be someone that brings money in the year 2024, where your competition is Netflix and Hulu and on-demand movies, and
This is why I say all these factors drive how music is created. You don't have a certain amount of freedom to do what you want to do if you're really serious trying to get out there. Like, I can make whatever I want to make in my house, and the same 12 people will buy it and listen to it. I'm fine with that, right?
Yeah.
That's where I am in my life.
Yeah.
But when you're serious about this stuff, you can't afford to take those kinds of risks, because there's nowhere you're going to be able to play. And if you think there's a bunch of backyards and house party shows, and please don't tell me about all the house party shows you went to, because the wall behind me is filled with venues that are closed, houses that no longer have people, house shows you can't do anymore.
Yeah,
those places are gone. Like, who can afford to live in a house and have a band and people they don't know destroy
who wants to? Yeah, exactly. There's like, look, if someone has their house as like a long-term venue, they should be given a medal. If you ask me, because they're doing a service to the music world, music community. But I think on that, I think that's, and I know people want to hear about 1977, not now, but I think it's important to note that that's why you have a lot of these bands that are like more projects than bands, where like people are just doing what they can, making the music and getting it out there for the people that are interested, and less concerned with playing live. But by the same token, as someone who does not only still tour but actively tours and has a tour coming up in like I think 3-4 weeks, something along those lines, still a lot of bands touring, but there's not as much money in it as there used to be.
No.
Like it works for me because I'm me, because I never stopped, and I've kept all these contacts together, and I know where we can do stuff and where it can be worth our time. If I was a band just starting out now, it would be so daunting just to be like, how do you do any of this stuff? Because I know how to do it, but how do you meet the people that will
Even with all the
work for
advances in
you?
technology, it's I think it's
No.
harder now. But I'll
People-
even add this. Conan, if this 1977, you and Tony, just you and Tony,
Mhm.
could go sit at Toshi's with a lifetime supply of coffee, a whole bunch of homegrown marijuana, and and just record 18 records
Oh,
and
yeah.
never play a show and
Yeah.
probably make what you're making now.
Look at Harry Nilsson, right? Harry Nilsson had huge hit records, and he famously was not into touring at all. Didn't like playing live, hated it, and he had huge hits. That was like, Without You, right? I mean, like it's like Jump Into the Fire. Like there's like so many, and he just liked making records, and he was goddamn good at it. And there's a great documentary. I know this would be like a Conan recommends documentaries, but there's a great documentary called Nilsson Schmilsson that's pretty fantastic. But he famously hated playing live. And the thing is, Harry Nilsson coming out when he came out, like late 60s into 70s and 80s, et cetera, he could have a career doing that. And he could have a career off the publishing and things like that. If Harry Nilsson came out today, only people on Bandcamp would know him.
And how many people are there right now? I don't know.
I
I'm
mean,
not trying to be like fucked up.
I'm not saying you can't have a hit or whatever, but I'm just saying like it would be kind of like an impressive.
No terrestrial radio and no album sales. Like I didn't know Steely Dan didn't play a live show till like 1993.
Right.
That's a lot of records you're releasing that are charting, and you're paying obscene amounts of money for your musicians, because there's only 2 guys really in that band, right? And a bunch of studio musicians. And they're saying stuff, watch any documentary about the making of Asia, where the guitar player, the guy that later joined the Doobie Brothers, I can't think of his name. He was like,
Michael McDonald?
No, the guitar player, the short guy with the long hair with the glasses and the
whatever. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that guy. He was like, it took me 2 weeks to find a good chair to sit in. Because remember, he would sit in a chair.
and that's what the punk rock movement was a reaction against, which is that like it doesn't take that level
that
of effort
I don't
to make a
know
record.
if I buy. I don't buy that. You know why? If they had the ability, because they end up getting that ability, they do all of the same things.
I don't think so. I think some of them would. I think some of them would, and some of them did. If you listen to some of those records, but I mean, look, there's.
They don't know, because that interview doesn't happen. That has taken that guy 2 weeks to find a chair. They don't.
But it's not. But there's a difference between using a bigger budget to make like a record that you take more time with, and that you make sure it's exactly the way you want. Jeff Baxter. There we go. That was the War Profiteer. That's right. Not kidding. Look it up.
No shit.
But so you have situations where people are using a bigger budget to make like a record where like, hey, it isn't just us banging this out in 2 days and then mix in another 2 days and then it's off and there you go, timeless record. But they're taking their time making it, like the London Calling or something along those lines. But they're not spending 2 weeks picking a chair. There is a great issue. It is an important distinction that rock and roll or pop, whatever you want to call it at that point, at a larger level, had reached the apex of excess at this point. Like the cocaine budget was like a greater budget than like most of these iconic records that
I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. I can't disagree that I'm not disagreeing that there's not an obscene amount of excess in that time.
But they're not paragons of morality just because they were poor too. I mean,
you don't you don't have the ability to do those things, so you do what you can do with what you have. Right. If one day something hits for you and you have the ability to be like, hey, Tosh, we can get you a new let's just go buy a new place and
I
put all the stuff we want to do. Either you're gonna say, nah, I like it where I am, or you add a few new things to the studio because you can.
Yeah, well, of course, and like there's situations where nowadays that can happen, like a Chance the Rapper or something along those lines, where people get over somehow in this larger way without even touching like the major label world. Idols, that's another good example. Although, like, really, it's like people still wouldn't know Idols who more or less just ripped off McCluskey. I like them, but I have called them woke McCluskey in the past, and I meant as a compliment because I especially love the first couple records, but they were platformed. They were platformed by like Foo Fighters and exposed to a larger audience, and if they didn't have a banger live show, it wouldn't have mattered. It would just been like something that they would have done, but they were able to connect with people on a much larger scale because they were exposed to a larger audience. And think about punk rock at this time and like later into post-punk, people were not interested in a larger, wider reach for the most part. They were interested in creating something real and something vital that was a reaction against what was happening. And which doesn't say that was true for all of them. That I'm not saying that people like weren't looking for success, but they were interested in creating something new. And they did, just not what people were thinking that was going to be at the time. It ended up being something entirely different. Like, again, you can grade it by, and if you talk about my personal sensibilities, I probably like more post-punk bands than punk rock bands at this point because they're more interesting, they're more unique, they're trying different things. But the idea there would be a post-punk, that punk rock is over and now we're having a post-punk, and then people are like, oh, actually, and then that turned into hardcore and whatever. But
that name is as made up as punk rock, right? Like
it is, but it needed a distinction because Wire and Joy Division, shouldn't be on the same page as the Exploited. You know what I mean? Like it's like those are.
But sometimes those guys play the same shows because of necessity,
right?
Out of necessity, right?
Yeah.
But it is interesting. Like the reason why I don't like the moniker as much is doing these shows made me dislike the moniker actually, because as seminal punk records are being released, post-punk records are being released. 79 was the year that kind of blew my mind.
We talked about that in 79. Yeah,
going down that list, I'm like, oh, I get the name because I think I told you me and Cindy did a show at the March Violets in San Francisco once, and I was asking them about that. I was like, what do you guys like to be called? And they were like, man, when we started, there was no post-punk. Nobody said that word when we started.
Right. Yeah, critics came up with it.
Yeah, he's like, you want to call us that? That's fine. You want to call us new wave? We don't care. Just it was just all punk rock when we started. Anything you did this weird, you were punk rock. And I do like that all-encompassing big tent idea, because for me, all of this stuff was different and weird, and it was people trying things. And trying things is going to look different. Again, if you're
it's not always successful. You're right. Yeah.
Peter Frampton, trying things is going to be like, let's go get that handmade onboard gear for mixing so we can compress this a little bit more.
Let's use a talk box, which is a thing that nobody had used in pop music at the time. And like, oh wow, my voice sounds like a computer,
right. When you're broke and trying things, it's like, we don't have enough drum mics. What if we just put one mic on the floor?
Right, exactly. Yeah,
and try to see if that works.
Yeah. No, it's well, and that's the experimentation through where the motivating factor is poverty. Like, we have no money. What can we do with no money? Well, it turns out that if it's people are going to care less about the fidelity of the recording or how ornate the arrangements are if you have a vitality to the energy of what's happening. And again, I know people that are not interested in punk rock, don't want to hear about this, but the fact of the matter is there's very little correlated to it to other music, and everything in DIY, including the podcasting, live streaming world, all of these alternative medias, it comes from punk rock. And if you don't recognize that, you need to learn some history. Yeah,
everything I do, from the way I wake up in the morning.
Right, absolutely. It's punk rock, or as Mike Watt calls it, the movement. It is as much a way of life than a genre of music.
Yes.
Right. So
No, yeah. And yeah, everything I do is very DIY. We can't do this show and not talk about funk music.
let's throw it on. I'm ready. Let's go through
My
it.
God,
This is
Conan. There's so much. Now,
so
here's the
much.
thing about like all music genres. I don't give a damn what it is, just because there's good stuff in it.
Mhm.
And again, 77 sounds like the year. It's like, okay, let's get. Is there a black guy in bell bottoms playing the guitar?
Yeah.
Give him a deal.
Give
There's a
him
lot
some
of
money, kid.
funk music that's not that great. There's a lot of bands that it's going to take them a while to really hit their stride, like the Gap Band and Cameo have records in 77. They're like, eh. But Parliament Funkadelic, Bootsy's Rubber Band, who else? Let's see who else. Let's pull
When is
this.
his Commodores 77?
Commodores, the
Yeah.
Commodores self-titled with Brick House and Easy.
Yeah. That's a good
There's some amazing
cool. Yeah.
funk music in this era.
So first of all, I gave so real quick, I gave some lip service earlier on to Low and Animals, Low by Bowie and Pink Floyd. We didn't mention Fleetwood Mac. Rumors comes out this year too, so we should give that a shout out.
No, before you got here, I already did.
Oh, okay, cool. I didn't hear that. And then I mentioned Heroes. I mentioned the Berlin era of David Bowie, like people moving forward. Marky Moon, great example of a band, punk rock and ethos, not in sound. Psycho Killer had 77, not my favorite record of theirs, but like just the kind of where they get going on all that. I see you were listening to Aja there. You had that going.
Yes.
Steely Dan, we mentioned. Check that link about Jeff Baxter. It's going to blow your mind.
You saw I put it up on the screen.
I
right?
did. I saw. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Conan Neutron does not lie. Is what I said. He's not a liar. A lot of things.
Pink Flag, Wire, Ground Zero for When Wire Begins. Amazing. Billy Joel.
Hey, The Stranger came out. I love this song.
Billy Joel, The Stranger. If you
don't go changing.
I like you just the way you are. We talked about the Sex Pistols
it's my favorite
ad nauseum. It's a great song. Yeah.
Jammin' by Bob Marley and the Waiters. The Wailers. Sorry, please.
The Waiters. Bob Marley and the Waiters.
Bob Marley and the Waiters.
Make sure to tip generously. Yeah.
Suicide.
I love their record Table Service.
Oh.
Oh my God. Showroom Dummies. Yeah. Kraftwerk.
This is the thing about the playlist. Before you make a comment about what you see or don't see, there's 388 songs on that list. So if you're trying to scroll through it quick, it's not going to populate fast enough. Please give it a second before you tell me I left something out.
Yeah.
I don't remember 388 songs that I put together over the last week. F yourself if you think I remember every song I put on there, and double F yourself if you think you remember everything that came out in 1977.
Yeah, it's really easy to criticize from the comment section, is what he's saying. Look, quick shout out to Kraftwerk. Transeurope Express is a monster record. Europe Endless is on there. Hall of Mirrors, Metal on Metal. I think that was the first one I actually heard. I went back to like Man Machine and all that, but I can't get enough respect to Kraftwerk. Put some respect on their name. Suicide. Talk about bands in that punk rock world that. Like nothing sounded like them. Still don't.
That's what
two dudes.
But Conan, for me, that's what makes that genre in general. It's a bigger tent for me because so much stuff gets thrown. Like the Misfits gets thrown in there.
Sure, absolutely.
And nothing sounds the same, and you could just do your thing.
I was not the hugest fan of Civil War. I have a lot of problems with it. I think it's a good movie about photojournalists and like not at all what they advertised it was going to be. I had first page problems with the script, et cetera. But respect is due. Garland put in not one but two Suicide songs on that soundtrack.
Really?
And
I haven't
were
seen it.
Perfectly placed. Silver Apples too, believe it or not. Queen, We Will Rock You. Ever heard of that obscure song?
Lust for Life. Dun, 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 dun,
yeah.
dun,
Well,
dun,
I gave a shout out to which was in Carnival Cruise Lines. I think they had that at one of their commercials. Like later on, everyone got mad. They got so mad at Iggy Pop for like letting it be used in an ad. Like, look, first of all, this is a song about someone having like weird sex on drugs. Like there's the line, of course I've had in the ear before, and that's being used to like represent like, families going on a cruise. So if that isn't Devo, I don't know what is. And also, like, let the man get his bag, right? Let
Yeah.
the man get his bag. He never got away back when. He got ripped off time and time again. But Lust for Life, the record, amazing. Passengers on there as well, one of my very favorites. And that's a perfect example of somebody that was at a quote unquote bigger level, but was doing it with like intensity and vitality and kind of bringing it back. It hasn't been I mean, he was working with Bowie a little bit on that time too.
Mhm.
It's not just a solo effort necessarily, but perfect example was his resiliency. And Iggy's someone that even when there's large swaths of his discography, I'm like, miss me with that. It's all respect always, ever. We talked about
people are putting out, so you have the ability in this moment to put out so much music and really sit down and go, I want to make a great record.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure I'm working with the best musicians. I'll wait 6 months until so and so is free to work with this person. And it seems like I wasn't in the industry in 77. It seems like there's not a lot of pressure to go out and play live, because so many people are releasing multiple records.
Well, the idea, yeah, and also there's two things happening. So there's one of which is that people don't know you can. right. And the other thing is you don't have to. You can just put the records on. The records will sell. You don't ever have to like show up and do it. I mean, maybe there'll be enough people that clamoring, they want to see you, kid. Then like, okay, then you can do that. But like, it's not necessary. You can have like a huge worldwide hit and even have a band. Again, look at that first Boston record. That's the year before this, but it's like literally just one dude working in the studio and he wrote these like crazy huge hits.
It's so crazy to think that it's like, because when you watch the movies of this era, it's always like, you got to go tour, kid. We got the record. You got to go tour on it. Yeah, and then you hear these stories about these money. Like, they never left the house. At all. They just released records, collected advance checks.
Well, because there's also there's gradations of it, right? Led Zeppelin, again, I keep invoking Zeppelin, but like Led Zeppelin came out of when they did their first tour, they were billed as the new Yardbirds because Page used to be in the Yardbirds because that's how they could get booked. Mm-hmm. And they were a hell of a live act. Now, again, I don't care what people anyone's opinion on Led Zeppelin is. They were huge. They were a huge band that had a huge live show. That was an event that people would go to, formative experience, et cetera, et cetera. They actually did not put out a record in 77. They put out Presence and Song Remains the Same in 76, and then I think 79's In Through the Outdoor. But I'm bringing them up because they were the example of like what you're talking about, of like they're the live band that tours. But that wasn't the only model. That was the the rock band, the big pop band, whatever you want to call it, that is out and like they did that because they had an incredible live show,
and we didn't have. And let's add this into the equation, because I hate these conversations, and I do want to juxtapose then and now. There's a thing now where people are mad about, especially older people, that there are bands that go out with computers that run backing tracks, vocal tracks, other instruments, whatever. First of all, I don't really give a damn what anybody runs, because I don't give a damn what anybody runs. It literally doesn't affect anyone else's bottom line but theirs. But there is a reality to the cost of touring. Again, I'll invoke Chris Contos. Please go listen to that show. Was 1986 the greatest year of heavy metal? He's talking about how much money it costs for him. He's in Forbidden now, for them to go on tour in Europe, where they're wanted, where they're playing big festivals. Yeah, he's like, we're not making any money, and we're going and playing big fests. And if we have one-off shows, we're doing well. They just booked like a special meet and greet show. Maybe that is going to cover of some other extra costs, and maybe they can go home and have some money to eat a nice dinner with when they get back.
Man, I am literally planning something for Conan Neutron and Secret Friends that is not in this country, that I'm doing the fight math right now, trying to figure out like, okay, what could we do? How long could we be there? If I get this airline fare sale, like, when does that end? It is, even people think that like even bands that are like quote unquote bigger to their minds, that they don't go through this. I assure you, like it is, everyone's at a thinner margin than they let on to be, because you know why? It's a drag to talk about.
It's the bigger you get, the more things you bring. So if you're playing in clubs and theaters, you're probably not bringing your own sound system.
Yeah.
Maybe. But once you get out of the club and the theater, now you have an additional production truck.
Yeah, look like Foo Fighters or Metallica and stuff at that level. It's like
you're bringing your own staging. Like it's a different level of setup, right? And
one of the things, one of the posters on your wall is a thing that I threw where the sound system was Metallica's touring sound system that they weren't using, that we were able to borrow. Yeah, man.
No
Meyer
shit.
Sound. It was like literally their touring sound system, and it was like, oh yeah, you can borrow it.
That's pretty dope.
That's how stuff gets done, man.
And it wasn't the whole Metallica touring sound system.
Hell no, it wasn't. No.
It was like their monitor.
It was like their. But it's like a $3,000, $4,000, worth of speakers and mixers and stuff like that. That like would be like, look, that would be like the best club you ever played if you ever put that in a room, but that's like not even the full thing that they're bringing. So and think about at this time things are standardized now, right? We have theaters, we have halls, we have clubs that like you get a rep for having crappy sound and no one wants to play there if you don't have your act together now. It isn't like you just hang up your shingle and people show up, right?
You may bring me and Cindy were bringing our own sound system with us.
I know plenty of bands that do that. Babyland used to do that too because their setup was so unorthodox that no one would understand that. Like, no, you need to have these keyboard back end tracks need to be like, you need to feel it. And if you can't, and people would never do it. So they would just be like, fine, fuck it, let's bring our own PA. And like they brought their own PA, set it up and tore it down every night. Jucifer's another example, another band I toured with. Where it's just like it's bringing them in what seemed like hours and then taking them out for what seems like hours afterwards. That's how you know you're living that life.
You have to do that at a certain level. And these bands have such big stage production. They have so many background singers. There's so much instrumentation. It's like we can't afford to go live because we don't have the ability to reproduce what we've done on the record in a live setting. So now, fast forward, I can reproduce what I'm doing in the studio. And even if we want to do 29 guitar tracks and have keyboard stuff, we're never going to bring a keyboardist. You can just throw a computer on for those backing tracks or whatever you need.
You want to do that first notes of Nevermind the Bullocks where you track the guitar like 20 times? Sure, you can do it. No problem.
You can do it. Right? And it's not a big deal.
Hell, they could have toured with Sid Vicious and it would have sounded good.
It would have been great. The Sex Pistols now would still be going if they had the ability. Did I show you this footage? Did I show you this footage of Nikki Sixx? He's playing Motley Crue's playing, and he's like sitting there with the bass, and he sees out of the corner of his eye a fan runs on the side of the stage at him. He takes the bass off and goes like this. He's about to KO this kid with the bass. The kid gets terrified. He's holding it. He wanted to give Nikki Sixx a beer.
Oh man. So
he runs up and the kid's like, and he puts the beer down. Security tackles the kid, but the bass never stopped.
He kept it going. That's how you do it. So you know you're a pro.
I was like, damn, you get wah, wah, wah.
Yeah.
But when you're at a certain level, and I'm not saying that you should be mad or not mad. There's definitely discussions I've gotten with people that get mad. Like, I would be so upset if I found out a band I paid money to see wasn't playing live. I was like, well, I got some bad news for you. Because if you go to a certain size show, there's probably going to be some backing tracks played. Do you care?
And there's also moves like even bands I like will do like whether they do backing tracks, they'll get like auxiliary people. It's like, wow, why do they have so many people playing guitar? That's so like, it doesn't really matter if the singer decides I just don't feel like playing this right now. Like I'm just gonna sing,
Well, Lance is playing with did you never know the Horseneck guys from Sacramento?
I can't think of her name. Jess.
Yes.
She played in Happy Fangs. We played with them a bunch.
So her boyfriend also played in Horseneck, played guitar. He's in the Deftones now.
There you go.
He's a touring guitar player for the Deftones.
By the way, I'm available for this work. If anybody will listen to this, not only am I going to advocate for it, I'm going to say I'm available. I'm good at it. I'm like, the problem with being like a quote unquote impresario or whatever, like, the
Mhm.
lightning rod of whatever that has like his name and everything, not because he's an egomaniac, but because everything is hard to find without a distinctive search buoy is that people think I'm not interested in that kind of thing. I'm doing a heartbeat for the right band, sure, or the right money, either one. Hopefully both. but like, I mean, you never know until you ask, but like there's something to be said for that. I mean, Alan Epley from Shiner, he just did a stint filling in on second guitar for Sunny Day Real Estate on
Oh,
these
no
reunion
shit.
shows. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, like, look, that's the best gig ever, especially if you have like a real job too.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
You can take
yeah.
like
I'll
2
go play
weeks off.
these like gigantic ass theater shows full of people that are like having like existential moments because of how much they love these songs. Sounds okay. Yeah.
Oh, dude, I would do that gig.
Yeah.
I would hell to do that gig.
I mean, if it's something like Smash Mouth or something, miss me with that. But like, like whatever.
Especially because the singer died.
Yeah. Although they got, isn't it like the thing where like a new guy sounds exactly like the old guy?
They have a new guy in Smash Mouth.
They absolutely do. Yeah.
Oh, that's not.
How do I know this? I don't.
That's not where we want to be. Some
Anyway,
things just let it go. And I'm not even hating on Smash Mouth because I used to rehearse at the studio.
but the
Whatever.
thing is, they can play county fairs for like good guarantees.
Yeah, okay,
like,
you're
the
right.
world over until the day they die because they got Walking on the Sun and they got the All-Star song. Yeah, like they got them 2 songs. That's all anyone ever wants to hear from their ass. But they got those 2 songs.
But look, let's talk about the funk. There's
Sure, yeah,
the Commodores.
amazing Commodores. Like, folks, even if you think you know Commodores, go back and listen to like
Go back and listen to
that
this
record
funky
because it's
ass
like, God, I listen to that and I'm like, man, this is so good. This is so good.
There's
Yeah,
some really good. There was more
Parliament. There's a great
There's a great Parliament record that comes out this year. I forget the name of it. There's a really good Bootsy's Rubber Band record that comes out this year. Also, you got some, I think Cameo's first record comes out this year. But one thing I will say about the 70s into disco, and this is where that conversation that we had on our house music show with Jeremiah was so interesting when he was talking about disco and disco to house and disco to funk. There is a class component in funk music because we don't have rap the way we know it today, right? It hasn't really come out.
Can I just say, I do want to hear about this, but I looked up Cardiac Arrest as the debut album by Cameo, and I happened to look up the album cover, and
What'd you see?
It's
What'd you see?
It's like a picture of all them in like an oval right between 2 big old tits. And I was just laughing because I was thinking about you talking about it earlier.
The Ohio Players.
Oh, that's a classic one. I know. I remember that.
Any Ohio Players album cover, it's like they found this thing. I look. It was like, hey, niggas like titties. That's how I picture Sugarfoot talking. Niggas like titties. All on the cover. Chocolate nipples. Just cover them shits in butter. And that's how I picture.
Probably not that far off race, I would imagine.
Picturing, him pitching the album cover to the label.
Yeah, I'm like, there's one where it's like they're like hanging out and like lamping in suits, and then like there's just a naked woman. Yeah, just a naked woman around, just there.
Dude, it's so again, like you, but you look at George Clinton's album covers don't look like that.
No, but that's because George Clinton's got his own.
They're like
his own
like crazy outer spacey animated.
He was like the Funk Sun Ra in that way. He was building his own
the mothership coming down when they do the concert. I thought that was so cool. Eddie Hazel has the same thing. I think that was like almost a Motown like model of, we got the artwork guy, we got the bands, we're gonna keep them in the studio for this many months, and they're just gonna, all right, you guys are done. All right, you guys get in there and you do a song for this and yada yada yada.
Ohio Players had some dirty ass looking record covers. You're right. I'm looking through all of them.
Am I lying, Conan?
No. It's like there's a like a, you must have this amount of breasts on your album cover for
right.
Like, wow,
what's your teddy limit?
Titty limit. Take it to
What's
the titty limit.
Mr. Record Label Man? What is the titty limit?
The titty limit. Wow. Here we are. Anyway, sorry. You had a very important point. I was like just blown away when I
These
actually
all the
that
titty.
album
Yeah,
cover. I was
yeah.
like,
No,
"Geez,"
these
it's
guys
like,
really.
all right.
They went full hog. Like just put them on there. There's a class component, and I think it's because there's a certain amount of. There's
Gotta
still a
stop looking.
respectability politic in Black America that we don't really like to talk about in
Mhm.
the 70s, because this is also the era of the blaxploitation movie. And, you know, a little bit before this, you have kind of the soundtrack to these movies where people found out we can find these up and coming groups, like Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song. I believe that's Earth, Wind and Fire. And they were like a no,
Yeah.
they might have had a deal at the time. But they were still very.
By the way, that movie's groundbreaking and also not very good, and both those things can be true. I do not like that movie at all, but I think it is very groundbreaking and respect. But I wish it was a better movie.
Oh, I mean, just you make a movie for $12 and it makes like $300 million. Maybe you're gonna start a genre of film.
Right. I mean, like ultimate respect. Melvin Van Peebles is, like an incredible person. History should be shouted out more and more. But like,
Interesting guy.
as a movie,
watch the movie he did before that, Conan. It'll blow your mind.
Oh, that's the I've seen a Watermelon Man. Watermelon Man's great. I love it.
Yeah, it's a.
I saw it.
But
I saw that as a kid, believe it or not. Which I was like, I don't know if I should be watching this.
People's movie. But there's a reality that there's a class component to this music, and funk music, the way we, especially like the more looser stuff you get with like I guess the Parliaments, the Ohio Players, the Cameos, that stuff's real loose and it's very quote unquote urban. And you get a more buttoned up bourgeois approach with disco, disco is a response to funk. Like, we can do this classy and respectable because the outfits are gone. Look at all those other bands. Granted, not everybody's going to be out there playing in a diaper like Parliament Funkadelic, but you do have crazy outfits. Even Earth, Wind and Fire, like crazy outfits and crazy covers. But like Chic comes out in 77 as well, and they're trying to lay the groundwork for, we can do this thing and we're going to do it with some elegance and some class, and we're still going to be very funky.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is refined funk for the upcoming Cosby generation. And I think that's an interesting component to disco, to funk, that you don't really hear too many people talk about, which is that class component that exists, because disco really does kind of kill for a bit funk music, because then funk has to clean itself up, because Rick James,
as a mainstream thing. Yeah, you're right.
Rick James really cleans it up by the time he really hits.
Yeah.
He's not as loose and wild. Go back and listen to this stuff. It's really slow.
Yeah.
And they're really like just getting into that groove, like really.
I'm just gonna say the man was certainly wild enough when he like kidnapped and assaulted those women with under that crack. But yeah, respect. I know what you're talking about. Musically, you're talking about. Yeah.
Someone says, I can imagine Conan as a child calling people jive turkeys.
No, but anyway, I know what you're saying. Like, so it's like there's a rule book now, right? Whereas opposed to like, if you listen to a band like Cameo or Ohio Players or Commodores and Parliament, these all are more or less operating in the same genre, but they're wildly different sounding. They have their own thing going on. Some is very messy, like in the terms of like, if you're talking from like a pop perspective, Parliament especially follow no rules of any kind. Yet again, like I think you put Bop Gun on the playlist here, right? I mean, like, what is that? I'll tell you what it is. Over 8 minutes long. They don't care. Is it completely like unfuckwithable party jam? You goddamn right it is. Like, and that's a situation where they're not thinking about this is going to be on the air, so we got to keep it like 3 minutes or whatever. They're thinking about it in terms of like, we want people to have a great time while they're listening to this, more than likely get laid, be on whatever substance that they're going to be into, if they're into that kind of thing. And like, it's going to go as long as it needs to go. Like, that's their raison d'etre, right? But then by that same token, you have like these big disco hits that are like, oh, you could hit like worldwide big. Again, Bee Gees were not a disco band. They were a blue-eyed soul band. I started a joke that started the whole world crying. You know, like that's them. That is the Bee Gees. That is the same band. And they have a turn in their history that's so big because that Saturday Night Fever soundtrack is like not just monoculture big, like shockwaves throughout history.
John Travolta got his own solo record.
They
let that sink in, Conan.
think about that.
Let that sink in. That's on this playlist. Let that. I just want that. That had to sink in for me. I'm sitting here, Conan, like just trying to like fast as I can. I got the computer screen up and I got my phone. I'm making the playlist. And I looked at it. I was like, no fucking way. John Travolta had a fucking record.
Yeah, and you have like Donna Summer, right? Who's like dominating the charts. Chic too. Village People. Let's not.
Village People have a record in 77.
A
lot of this stuff, by the way, is not available on Spotify.
It's probably tied up for rights issues or something.
Rights issues.
Yeah.
Lots of rights issues. A lot of stuff. A lot of stuff is rights issues. You know who else had her first record in 77 that you can't find on Spotify? Bjork.
Really?
She was a child. I think she was like.
Oh, that weird. Yeah.
It's all like folk music. It's Icelandic folk.
Can I tell you? I only know about that because I listened to the 1001 album complaints where they did what the one's got human behavior and all that. And they were talking about some of her background because they like go into background stuff. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew the Sugar Cubes, but she was in another band before the Sugar Cubes. Yeah, but I'm saying I only knew Sugar Cubes. By the way, you know, since we're bringing up stuff, you know what else comes out of the record this year? Sparks.
Yes.
With their seventh record. With their seventh record called Introducing Sparks.
Introducing Sparks, yeah. Yeah.
Mad respect. That's got Big Surprise. That's got it's good. It's good. It's a good plus C tier, B tier Sparks record. But I'm making a special point as one of my favorite bands, anytime we do a year that has a Sparks record come out, that I give it at least a single shout out.
Someone says they never heard that Bjork had it. Yeah, Bjork has a.
It's wild. I never heard it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm glad I didn't hear those guys shit on Debut. That's one of my favorite records.
They didn't. It's not that they. It's interesting. I mean, look, they're such, like I said, like a friend of mine referred to them as baffling squares, and I think that's pretty hilarious. I think that's a good show to listen to, and honestly, some of my favorite episodes are the ones that I don't agree with them dead on. I will say, I felt like I was Christian being thrown to the lions when we did that Mudhoney record. I did not expect them to come so hard on that, and that was hard for you because it was like I was the only one that was like, this rocks, and you guys are idiots. But for the most part, I agree with them. But yeah, that's where I found out about she had that record when she was like little, which is
I don't even think she was 10. She's like a child. Yeah.
Child prodigy.
Sin After Sin by Judas Priest. So rock, what we now call classic rock, is really coming into its own, and what we were going to eventually call heavy metal is really coming into its own. But the States really is producing some pretty good rock music as well. But what we're going to call the new wave of British heavy metal really, in my opinion, starts forming into what is going to be contemporary heavy metal with Judas Priest, Sin After Sin. I think, but is it the next year that Iron Maiden Killers comes out?
Right. And Sin After Sin's the one's got they do Diamonds and Rust by Joan Baez on that one, which is pretty great. It's good. Yeah. You know, like we talked about it before. I'm a big, which that's like their third record. Priest. Like,
I don't like Rock and Rolla. I didn't like that when there was still like a Zeppelin-y band.
Yeah. I mean, British Steel is amazing, but that's like their sixth record.
And isn't it 82? Isn't British Steel 82?
It's 1980. You're thinking of Screaming for Vengeance, which we talked about.
Okay, okay. So 80. There's
that's the one's got you got another thing coming.
The through line between a lot of this music is you have to be a competent player.
Yeah.
to be in a band. Like you have to be a competent player. So there's a lot of soloing and instrumentation, regardless of the music you're listening to at this time. There's a lot of soloing.
Oh, absolutely.
And
I mean,
and
that's sort of
really,
like
really
you
good
have
guitar
all
work.
of those. Well, we talked about ELO earlier. What about Emerson, Lake and Palmer? Right, like all that
Mhm.
stuff was just like lousy with like extended solos and stuff like that. I mean, was it this? This is ELP releases Works Volume 1 and Works Volume 2 in the same year. It's like complete excess, right? And I'm look, we don't need to talk about Prague at this time. All we know is it's getting pretty overblown at
Mhm.
this time. And oh my god, Let There Be Rock, AC/DC, hell
I
yeah.
was gonna say there's a few records we do need to at least to mention before I turn the phones on. Bat Out of Hell. When I was a kid, and I don't know if was this like you for you in the Central Coast. When I was a kid, the grocery store sometimes would sell tapes.
Mm-hmm. Oh
Bat
sure,
Out of
yeah.
Hell was always on there. I thought Meatloaf was a metal band because of that album cover, which
Dude, because it looks like like the
Yes,
hardest metal band ever, and then you
right.
listen to it and you're like,
So
is this
I was
opera? What's
so hurt
happening?
when I finally heard Meatloaf like 100 years later. I think with the dashboard light. No, it was when did I finally hear Meatloaf? I'll do anything for
I
love.
will do anything for love, but I won't do that.
Is that about
Oh,
taking it in the butt
no!
or eating butt? Which one was it about? It's something about a butt.
Can I tell you, there's a classic album for Bat Out of Hell. I feel like these shows half the time I give people homework for things to watch.
Mhm.
If you're interested at all, even if you're not interested in Meatloaf, he would go around Meatloaf
Mhm.
and the keyboard player, who was like the guy who like wrote all the music, and they would go into record executives' offices. He would plop down the keyboard, and they would perform the album at the executive who's like sitting in the chair having this you're like and he's just like and they would do this multiple times over in the attempt to get a record deal. Like literally like unsolicited Meatloaf concert with an audience of one person, which is the record executive. And they did this multiple times, eventually to success, I might add. But can you imagine? Look, Meatloaf's an imposing entity. It's a big dude. And he's like doing the show and he's sweating and doing the thing. And like, and it's like, this is happening like, like 3 feet from you. Like, and the guy's just sitting there, ding, 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 ding,
He's
banging on the
sweating like a
keyboard.
pig too. Yeah.
What is this going on?
Just-
And that image, that story and that evocative image is like, I tell you, throw it on. Throw it on. You will have a good time with it, even if you don't care about Meatloaf at all. But again, Bat Out of Hell's huge. That's it. And when does Rocky Horror Picture Show is like a couple years earlier, I think, right?
Yeah, that I didn't realize how old that movie was. I watched a documentary on Rocky Horror Picture Show as I was going to sleep the other night, which was really interesting because I've never got into that movie. I never was one of those people that went to the theater.
Yeah.
Yeah, I not to hate on it. I just never.
No. I mean, it's respect. It's respect for Rocky Horror Picture Show. I don't get what a lot of people have get out of it. Personally,
It's a musical.
It's fine. I mean, it's an important piece of counterculture, and I think it's important to be familiar with it. But like, I'm not in the church, right? Let There Be Rock comes out this year. Fantastic record. The worst thing you say about Let There Be Rock is that it isn't Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, which is before, and it isn't Power Age, which is the year afterwards. AC/DC was on one for this one. Just every year they put out like a banging record. Power Age is actually one of my favorites, and it's got exactly 0 hits of any kind. And it's like one of my favorite AC/DC records. But Let There Be Rock, Timeless, Dog Eat Dog, Go Down, Whole Lot of Rosie's on there. One of their best songs.
It's always covered. Someone's always covering that.
People are gonna think of Highway to Hell. They're gonna think of Back in Black.
I'm gonna have you filibuster while I turn the phone lines on.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so Let There Be Rock is like one of the great rock songs too, which is sort of envisions the like let there be light, sound, drums, guitar, let there be rock. It kills. It's great. It's a great example of what AC/DC does when they spread it out a little bit. It's like a 6-minute song or something along those lines, but that's an absolute like live jammer. And it's they were a hell of a rock band. Most people only know Back in Black. And if they or maybe like a song or two, which is the Brian Johnson era, which is good, especially Back in Black. But the Bon Scott era is where it's at. If you like rock and roll, I'm not assuming everybody does, but if you like rock and roll, you are doing yourself a disservice to not explore the earlier AC/DC records. So Let There Be Rock is the fourth record. Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap is the third record, which is the one before. This again, like Creedence Clearwater Revival or the Beatles or something, like they're just cranking them out. They're cranking out like killer records every year, and they're all there for it to be picked up. And it's notable. So Let There Be Rock's a big deal. That's one that I personally love. I think 77 we would be remiss definitely to not mention there's a great Brian Eno record that came out this year, because we've talked about some of the things that Eno's associated with. That's awesome. Elvis Costello, the first Elvis Costello record, My Aim Is True, comes out this year. That is kind of a before he went all super pop with like Burt Bacharach and whatnot. It's a little rowdier, for lack of a better term, new wave, post-punk, etc. Just great songs, great songwriting. Bowie does Heroes. I mentioned Berlin earlier. Heroes is a classic example of that. Visconti at the deck. Brian Eno being a musical collaborator on there. Really good. Not much to say other than that. I think it's Rightly Regarded by History. ABBA, the album, comes out. Take a Chance on Me. That's a huge worldwide hit in that pop music world. Again, when you're trying to talk about the landscape of what music is, that's what is playing like in all like the major areas would be like grocery stores and stuff now, but they were probably Neil Sedaka at grocery stores at that point. Damned by the Damned comes out this year. It would be disingenuous not to give the Damned a shout out when we talk about great punk rock records that are happening around this time. It's pretty incredible. Machine Gun Etiquette's my favorite. Damned is one of the best records from that era. For sure, No Waffles. There's a great Miles Davis record, Dark Magus, comes out that year. We haven't talked about jazz at all, but this is pre the later period stuff, but way post bop. On the Corner 72, right? So he's like deep in it. Bitches Brews, like 70. It's a good fertile area for jazz which is very much on vogue right now. Tom Waits comes out with maybe one of my least favorite records of his, which is Foreign Affairs, which is fine. It's okay. Like there's a duet with Bette Midler on there. I don't know. Like I love the record after it and the record before it. I don't love that one, unfortunately, but that's notable. Motorhead, the self-titled Motorhead record, comes out that year. That's a banger and a half. We celebrate Motorhead on this show, right? That's a notable one. I do think that Motorhead's something that you don't necessarily need the record. You get it in like one or two songs. Death of a Ladies Man, Leonard Cohen. That's a talk about an underrated classic. That's freaking awesome. Not exactly what you expect. This is sort of the beginning of his career turn from sort of soft ballady troubadour into that crazy 90s thing that he does. My standout song for that is "Don't Go Home with Your Heart On," which is on the playlist. This is a huge Nick Cave, hugely influenced not just by this record but by this song. He's there's a large part of what he does in the Bad Seeds that there's a direct through line to Death of a Ladies Man. Really interesting record. And again, a joiner between like multiple epochs and eras of Leonard Cohen stuff. Eric Clapton, fuck that guy, but Cocaine is we've all heard it. It's on the radio. He was disingenuous to not mention History. Love Gun's one of my favorite Kiss songs. I do firmly think Kiss has at least like 12 all-time banger songs, over like a 50-year history. and that's one of them. And their B tier stuff is good too. I mean, like, but this is Love Gun is like as a probably go with Destroyer for their best record. But Love Gun has I Stole Your Love, Shock Me. It's great. Christine 16. I mean, there's a lot of good tunes on Love Gun. It's hard to advocate for Kiss. I just don't want to get in conversations about it. really. But yeah, there's a Giorgio Moroder record that comes out here from Here to Eternity. This big deal, talk about disco and disco overlaps. He works with Sparks a couple years later to do Number One Song in Heaven, which is one of the great sort of unexpected collaborations. Again, showing that they were years ahead of their time, more or less making music that Erasure would completely rip off to great effect later on. Jethro Tull. There's a Jethro Tull record.
Jethro Tull record was, and I'm only listening to snippets of it. Those were the longest, worst snippets. I was not a Jethro Tull fan.
I do not care for Jethro Tull. I don't hate on it, but it's just I've tried multiple times over the years. I get it. I just don't like it.
I don't get it. I need someone to sit me down and be like, it's the flute, man.
I'm assuming drugs is the answer, is why people like it.
What drugs are you on?
I have no idea.
Tell me the cocktail. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Was it mead? Maybe, I don't know. What they have, like back when there'd be flute jamming.
Your mead tastes like Griffin piss.
But I got to give a shout out here. Barracuda, Little Queen,
yes.
Heart's amazing. Barracuda is one of their best songs. Barracuda is, if you listen to that and you like that was not good, I don't know what your problem is. Like it's one of the all-time great rock songs.
If you don't like rock music, if you don't like distorted guitars, just listen to the isolated vocal track.
No, she's and they're sisters, man. Ann and Nancy. Like they like people don't talk about Heart enough. And if they do talk about Magic Man, which I love, Magic Man's great. But yeah, Barracuda is all-time jammer.
Funny Christ says meth and snuff.
Yeah, there you go.
If you're smoking or shooting meth and then chewing tobacco and listen to Jethro Tull,
let's hear some Jethro motherfucking Tull.
I'm like, okay. And you're at like a Shakespeare festival. I'm like, oh, okay. Now
Shakespeare festival
for showing me why. Like I would then go, I stand corrected, and you are doing everything right. If you're not doing any of those things, if you're cleaning your house on a Tuesday in a Pablo Cruz t-shirt and like acid wash Levi's, then I need you to tell me what the combo is. What is the cocktail? Now we have a phone call, Conan. Now, caller, I will say, Conan, you won't be able to hear him as well. You'll be able to hear me. So please make your point and we will respond to you off air. So calling from a 843 area code, caller, what is your name and where are you calling from? Oh, you know what works, caller? When I push the call through. This is what happens when there's no Toussaint.
This
is what happens. Calling from an 843 area code, caller, what is your name and where are you calling from?
This is McFizzle, baby.
Oh,
and I am calling from the No More Bombs protest in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So I'm up out of the way so people. I'm not distracting from other people. But we're down here in Red Arrow Park protesting the genocide.
Can you ask the person next to you what's the greatest song from 1977?
I mean, it's obviously Easy by the Commodores.
Easy by the Commodores.
They all feel this. Like there's no other quintessential song from 1977 because this is the pre go-go 80s, post Summer of Love sellout era of It's Easy, baby. You know what I'm saying? Because this is the time where you had the fade in, fade out guy, right?
Oh yeah,
and that is code for booger sugar. We all know this. It's just like, oh, we got to pay $5,000 for the guys flying in from LA to fade out. No, you don't. That's okay. Which is fine. It's all good. And in 1977, you didn't have an itemized list of anything because this is pre. This is pre-crazy commodification of media via Star Wars, right? Mm-hmm. And this is also pre Beach Boys Go Crazy. So, or Ryan Wilson going crazy. I think.
Sounds like somebody's cheering that point.
Hey, Dizzle, we're gonna have to go because we're having a hard time hearing you. Oh my God, we're
All
having.
right. Well,
Sorry,
first of all- okay. Can you hear? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
we can barely hear you.
Free Palestine.
Say
There you
again.
go. He said free Palestine.
Hold on. I'll say. Hold on.
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There you go. That's better.
Okay. I was just saying, it's it's easy like Sunday morning, and also free Palestine. That's all you really need to know right now.
There you go.
That's
You know? And no more bombs for genocide. That's all there is to it. Don't worry, I will drop $20 in the chat because I have demonetized your stream. I apologize.
Dizzle, thank you so much for calling. And yes, free Palestine. Tell everybody out there that everyone at TIR says free Palestine, and we support the cause.
Our homies do too.
That's Dizzle McFizzle, and
there's a great ice skating ring in that park. Not right now, of course, not in August, but like there's a great Red Hour Park. So I was actually just over there earlier.
I'm glad people are still protesting, because my fear was that everyone's attention span is like, no, well, now we have to talk about why we hate Donald Trump. So that's cool.
Right.
Dizzle's a real deal cat. So
gotta talk about how this unnecessarily hot Kamala Harris obey Shepard Fairey.
Yeah.
Where it's like, man, it's a glow up. I mean, look, she's an attractive woman. I mean, I'm not saying, but it's like, wow.
I would
I'd
Willie Brown Kamala Harris.
I was gonna say it looks like it could be in a 70s funk record. There's not enough. All right, that's our president I'm talking about.
What if Kamala has some like secret pictures of her
PILF? Look, I'm married. This is for comedic purposes only. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dizzle. We appreciate the super. We appreciate the phone call, brother.
Yeah, man, doing the work.
I like the fact that Dizzle says it's all about Easy. That look, the Commodores record
is a great tune. I love the Commodores. Great.
The Commodores records are really good, because I was going through it. I was like, damn, I forgot the hits. I think I just put Brick House on it.
I said earlier this week, like, even if you like them, go back and listen to the record. By the way, don't go away too quick. I have something I want to speak to on the one that was on the previous page. But record's better than you think it is. Styx, Grand Illusion. I got to give a shout out to Styx. I am fucking fascinated by this band. I wouldn't say I necessarily like them.
Mm-hmm.
The sticks behind the music is amazing. At one point, they get compared critically to a parking lot full of whale vomit, to which the reaction is,
because of Mr. Roboto?
They said, so the reaction, you need to hear the reaction first, is like, they do the cutaway to like Dennis DeYoung, and he's like, I mean, a little whale vomit, sure, but a parking lot full?
That behind the music is really good.
It's really good. And there's also Dennis DeYoung talking about why he quit the band. It's like, I just couldn't sing any more songs about robots, which is pretty amazing. But this is the one's got Come Sail Away. Come Sail Away is look, again, I'm more I'm fascinated by Styx. I wouldn't say I love Styx. I think Come Sail Away is a very well written song that does all of the things that they do well. The schmaltzy the vocals, like it was Tommy Shaw cut to, not Dennis DeYoung. It was Dennis DeYoung, of course, the vocalist. Like, it's got his like so earnest, it's like saccharine almost thing done super well. You got the
very operatic, very Broadway type vocals.
But you got the James Young, Tommy Shaw like dual guitar attack on there. Like, it's sort of like them at their best of that era, but also, like, it's a huge hit. It's a huge hit, and it's a weird hit because if you think about it, there's multiple movements to it. It does the thing that's like it's another 6-minute song. It's another like was it Bohemian Rhapsody, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a far cry from it does like what everything that Lady does, but like does it like with the other stuff that they did well. Got to give a shout out for Styx, because again, we talked about ad nauseum about like what punk rock was rebelling against. There's also rebelling against stuff like Styx, but yes. I think Styx is interesting. I think as far as bands like that, like, look, there's bands where it's like, all right, Loverboy's fine. They're not very interesting. Styx is absolutely fascinating. And I stand by my assessment. And if anybody is a nerd for that kind of thing, check it out.
I've never heard the Loverboy to Styx comparison.
I was just trying to think of like other bands that have more records out than you think they do, and that like were around like
Loverboy
similar
has
as
a
era.
song though, because they're also Canadian, so Canadian stuff lives in its own world, unless you're Rush
Sure. Well,
or
and
Heart.
Lover,
Is Heart from Canada or Seattle? I always forget.
Heart Seattle.
Okay, yeah, Seattle.
Loverboy doesn't get going until like 1980, but like I know, like whatever. All I'm doing is
You could have went
is
Night
finding
Ranger.
comparison. Well, Night Ranger I don't think is interesting at all. I think Night Ranger's boring as hell, personally. Peace and
Sister
love.
Christian, huh? No, not your jam.
It's fine. It's fine. It's
Night
not
Ranger
bad.
for me. Night Ranger had the dopest name, and they had really cool album.
Night
covers.
Ranger has a great name, but too bad about the music.
Oh, and they have a great guitar player, Brad Gillis.
Yeah, man, but like
Brad Gillis filled it. He was almost
but great guitar playing does not a song make. Come Sail Away is a better song than like most Night Ranger songs. And I'm not even saying Styx is great because they're not great. They're interesting, but they're like I'm just
they're
saying.
very interesting. They're an interesting band.
Kansas, I won't lie, I didn't realize Kansas was around in 77.
I did, dude. Kansas is one of those bands. Okay, look, this is what I'm talking about with Spotify.
They were around,
like it or not. I have never bothered to listen to Kansas. And it doesn't have to just be Spotify. You can do this on YouTube as well. Never bothered to listen to Kansas in 46, it'll be 47 years on Monday of life.
Yeah.
Doing this playlist, I put it in, I was like, huh.
But you know what's on here? Dust in the Wind.
It is.
Which is like kind of timeless rock and roll song, right? Like, you know, is it my favorite? No, but like, you know, give it up, you know, dust in the wind, right? It's and you know what? The album before this, 76, Carry On My Wayward Son is a jam.
Great song. I didn't know they sang that.
Carry on my wayward son, there'll be peace when you are gone. Don't you cry, no.
I think the reason why I put this song on here because it's kind of heavy.
I don't know why I thought they were like 80s for some reason, but I don't know.
I think the song's kind of heavy. Richard Hell and the Voidoids.
Yeah, we mentioned Voidoids earlier.
Okay. Did we mention Footsteps in the Dark by the Isley Brothers?
Isley Brothers has not come up on this episode yet. So.
You know why? Because we're effing up. Another thing we have to talk about in 1977, there's a pivot from the Motown soul sounds, Stax Records soul sounds that become so popular also because of blaxploitation movies. A lot of these guys are doing soundtracks and the theme songs. When you get to this funk era, a lot of that stuff is gone because that music wasn't funky. It could be danceable, but it wasn't funky.
It wasn't funky, right? And that's I actually watched Wattstax, the documentary.
Haven't seen that. How was it?
Super good, really interesting. Not exactly what I thought. Like it's like about a third what I thought it was going to be, which was like a documentary of that killer, like, you know, concert where you had like you know, everybody playing, and they were like basically like, hey, we don't want another riot. let's have a show instead, right? But then also it's intercut with a bunch of like Richard Pryor just like lamping and like doing bits, and like it's a more kind of a picture in time. I think more than anything else. And it was super good. Rufus Thomas is cutting up. It's a good. It's good. I recommend it. I think I had to. You know, it might be streaming now. I was gonna say there's something recently from that era that I had to get from the library that wasn't streaming anywhere. But it was. I highly recommend it, even if like. Well, and the reason I remembered it is because they have that Stax Records documentary series that is on Hulu, I think. And I was like, I started watching that, and it's good. It kind of peters out a little bit, I think. But I was like, oh yeah, I've actually never seen that Wattstax documentary. I should watch that. So, but yeah, it's super good. Isley Brothers. What about the Isley Brothers?
I think this is kind of this interesting time where people are pivoting to what's popular, because what's popular is going to be what's making people move at dance clubs. Yeah. And that's what the radio is going to also play, was making people move at dance clubs. So everything's going to have a disco beat. It's going to be a lot more four on the floor stuff. Ballads are still a thing because of AM radio.
I mean, God, even the Stones do a disco song at a certain point.
Kiss,
you know, like
disco records, plural.
Oh yeah.
I was made for loving you, baby.
Not gonna lie, I like that song a lot.
How can you not?
Yeah, it's great.
It's a great tune.
Everyone was mad. Oh, they went disco.
I know this song right here, Manish Boy.
Some girls is the next year, but that's the one that's got Miss You.
So in every show, here's something funny, Conan.
And they did a disco remix.
I like Miss You, actually, by the way.
Yeah, Miss You's good. Some
But
girls
here's
is better
here's
than you
here's a
people
funny
think.
thing we never talk about on the show. There's usually a through line on this show that you never mention. I don't know if you've noticed it. There's always, except for 67 and 71, because we did 71, right?
Did we do 71?
I don't
remember. I need like a tote board.
We've done so many right now.
We did so many of them. Yeah.
Aerosmith always has a record.
Oh yeah, hell
Except for
yeah.
67, right? So Aerosmith always has a record on these shows we do, and usually the shows we've been doing are so later in their career, or we get it right where they're sucking.
Yeah. Not good.
Right when they're like
not good.
And oh god.
But it's Draw the Line this year,
Draw the
right?
Line.
Hell yeah. Maybe the most underrated of that classic Toys in the Attic rocks.
This is this moment when 77 is also a year we should acknowledge. Maybe the cocaine was pure. But this is a moment.
You want to change a man's tire is what it made you want to do.
Right. Hey, this is where it's like, maybe the drugs did make you write a great record. Hey. I'm not going to give him more. He's on a 3-album run right now that's making everybody a lot of money. They're chartering their own planes right now. So whatever's fueling that ship, let's just give them more. I'm okay with that. And Aerosmith Draw the Line is one of those records where you're like, ooh, this is a good.
It's sort of like a good meat and potatoes great Aerosmith record. I think when people that are not super fans are going to this era, they're rightly going to rocks or Toys in the Attic. Yeah. But it's Draw the Line. It's good. It's what more can I say? Again, if you only know the Desmond Child era of Aerosmith, like you're missing out.
You've missed all the good stuff.
It's at one point they were a hell ass rock band and they were scary.
So yeah, Aerosmith 77. Go back and listen to. And another thing with this show, what I want it to do, what it does for me, I can't speak for anybody watching, and I can't even speak for my co-host Conan. What it does for me is when I come across something that I've never heard before, which is a majority of the 388 songs on here from 388 records that span the globe and genres, I'll go play the whole album because we can now, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, there's some good fucking records.
Yeah. And like you can find all kinds of like look, I grew up with Aerosmith, and not just meaning the Desmond Child stuff, but like also like my dad, loved Toys in the Attic and rocks. So I knew kind of, I knew combination rules. Okay, well, combination, which by the way, when I saw them and reviewed them for the East Bay Express with Cheap Trick, they opened with that. I'm like, oh hell yeah, okay, we're in for it. They're starting with like these deep cuts. I do think that after I think Draw the Line's good. I think after Draw the Line, we talked about Night of the Month, right?
79.
This is like listen to that 79 episode. We talked
Joe
about
Perry's about. They managed to keep. They'll give you a good cut, and then in 84, because we did 84. I forget the name of the guitar player that came in for Joe Perry. Actually, guy was really good, and there's some great riffs in that record.
They were just kind of out of gas creatively.
They're out of gas. The problem with them, in my opinion, is going to be the live show, and this is a band that tours.
Yeah.
They don't really get better until, I think they clean up and Done with Mirrors and say what you will about that record. I think Ragdoll's on that record, which is their kind of intro back into the mainstream world before or right after the Run DMC thing. But Manish Boy by Muddy Waters. I know this song from what movie, Conan? What movie do I know that from? Better Off Dead.
Oh, sure. Oh god, I haven't seen.
There's two things.
Better Off Dead in like 15 years. But you're totally
this
right.
song. Play this song after you just washed your car. I know you can't change the oil and everything else with your spouse, but wash the car with your spouse
Yeah.
Pretend she's
I can't
Diane
watch
Franklin.
that.
She looks enough like a young Diane Franklin. Tell her that's who she is, honey. You're my Diane Franklin.
She won't know what that is, but yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder, have you seen Better Off Dead recently? Has that aged well? I feel like
Yes.
it might still
Yes,
function.
I have seen it recently. I saw it with a date. It was great.
Wow.
The movie's still funny.
Yeah, I remember it being like
So
awesome.
He put his
Like-
testicles all over me. His what? Like an octopus testicles.
Well, that's that. Like, it's like that's right down the line for me. Like, my favorite genre is that sort of dark comedy. You know, just like real, like sort of like bleak, but like hilarious. Yeah, man. There's a lot. $2. Yeah. Or is that
Dude,
that one?
that movie for me encapsulates present tense my current dating life. You'll see, Beth. And remember, Diane Franklin, you said we can get Amanda Wiss on this show, and I want to get Amanda Wiss on this show so we can talk about her, because Beth is the greatest girlfriend dumper of any 80s movie. I mean,
Yeah.
I figured it was better for me to date someone with a nicer car.
Yeah. Well, you know,
better looking. That is the funniest line. So
I gave a
Manish
shout
Boy?
out, Manish Boy, Muddy Waters. I gave a shout out to Miles earlier. I was saying this is actually interesting for jazz, but nobody talks about it. Pharaoh Sounders is absolutely one of those. You know, again, I don't think that I'm aware of. I don't think there's like a landmark go-to jazz record that comes out in 77, but there's a lot of just good jazz records.
There's a lot. So there's another thing that's happening because there's so much money to go around in the labels, and there's a lot of people buying records, and we don't have the ability to cast the widest net. So if you're a jazz dude, there's a ton of jazz records for you. Real experimental, real crazy. If you're a funk dude, there's a tons of records for you. If you're a rock dude, there's tons of records for you, right? Because people aren't really leaving their comfort zone, but a lot of this music sounds comfortable together. You can play a lot of these, especially a lot of these funk records next to a lot of rock records. And you're like, man, a lot of these guys are hitting very similar grooves, and I'm here for it. But the jazz records that come out in the 70s, there's some real cool experimental stuff that's able to come out that is actually selling a few copies.
Absolutely. Hard agree.
The Scorpions, The Ride of Your Time. Is this still Uli years?
Man, we went through this last time, and like I got it so wrong that I'm just not even going to answer without looking it up
When
first.
did Uli leave?
Because
I just wrote when did Uli leave, and Ulysses S. Grant came up. Score.
Yeah, because Scorpions, I kind of came to them sort of like quote unquote later in life. Like I was not like as a kid super into Scorpions. I do know that this is their like 5th record or something. Like I think last time we talked about well, it must have been for the 82 one, right? It must have been a Blackout.
1978. So he was on this record.
Yeah. It's the final studio album to feature Uli Roth is the one that comes out the day before I was born, December 4th, 1977.
Word.
So
Uli, love his guitar playing, by the way. What a virtuoso, and kind of sets the stage for what we're going to see moving forward with virtuoso guitar players. This Can record, I was real stoked to listen to it because I never heard it before, and I did not like it.
You know, I am forever looking to get into Can, and I'm forever being like, you know what? There's like 2 songs I like. And there's a bunch of stuff I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. You know what I mean?
That's a thing. You guys did a thing.
Yeah. I mean, like like there's that what I mean, what's the big one? Vitamin C.
Vitamin
right?
C.
Yeah.
You're losing your vitamin
So
C.
good. It's so good. It's like I want other songs to sound like that. I'm like, no, not really.
Nope. But that's kind of dope when you're like, you like that? That's good.
Yeah.
You know, we're not going to do that again.
We're on this other shit now. Yeah.
That's some Prince, some Faith No More stuff. That's some,
people get mad at me when I say that I'm not that into Can, but I've tried. It's just it's fine. It's fine.
Let them get mad. And if you're mad
They
at
get
me because I
mad?
don't like Can, then you don't have real problems. That's what you should say. And then just keep on walking. Like, you
Gonna
should go
say-
get a real problem and then just keep on walking.
I respect Can. That should be enough.
Yeah, if you're mad about any of these are opinions,
Mad
go
about
get a real
Can.com.
problem.
Right.
Go get Grateful Dead. Not a fan, even though a good friend of mine, who I think you know, Kid, worked for the Dead for years. Talented musicians.
Oh, absolutely.
Talented musicians.
You'd literally have to pay me money to listen to the music. Sorry.
No one paid me money and I listened. And I was like, okay. Feels Like the First Time by Foreigner. To me, this is like when we talk about classic rock.
Yeah.
These two songs, 76 and 77, Feels Like the First Time and Dance, Dance, Dance by Chic. If you say, what is 1977? If you throw those two things on a wall, people will be like, oh, okay, I get it.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
You know?
They probably wouldn't. It's interesting that probably wouldn't be what I would pick, but like it's yeah, I get it. That absolutely makes sense. I mean, what does it say about Foreigner, other than the fact that they've had more records than you probably think?
Yeah, that a lot. They couldn't buy a record deal in the 80s until they got. I forget who wrote that song for them. But I can't fight this feeling anymore. Sounds nothing like Feels Like the First Time.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No.
Is that what's is that other song's them? What is that song called? Is that Feeling? What is it?
I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Are you sure that's them? Hold on.
Isn't that them?
I don't know. I think it's REO. Isn't that REO Speedwagon? It is REO Speedwagon.
Okay, what is Foreigner?
Different band.
Oh, Foreigner's I Want to Know What Love Is.
I want to know what love is. I want you to know. Oh, no, just solo on me singing. Yeah, they have a lot of They have a lot of albums though. They've got like, I'm looking it up now. It's this. So this one is their first record, Double Vision. Double Vision. That's what I was thinking. Double Vision. And hot blooded. Can't you see? Got a fever of one. I feel like I'm doing like one of those K-Tail sounds of the 70s, like
sorry about that.
montage commercials. Like it's true. 90s kids will know.
Someone says I never liked Foreigner. Jesus, you hated the 70s.
There's is it to be their Jukebox Hero too, right? Is that
no, isn't that wait, are they Jukebox Hero?
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
To be a Jukebox Hero with stars in his eyes. Yes. I nailed it. That's on the album 4, which I assume is their 4th record.
Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah, cool. Blue Oyster Cult's good. Godzilla, yeah. That's a my dad saw Blue Oyster Cult on that tour, and apparently some dude got set on fire somehow. I don't know. Like there was like a lighting mishap or something. It's real. All the stories like that are pretty nebulous. Hey, how did you skip over Opium Trail? Bad Reputation is one of my favorite Thin Lizzy records.
Is it really?
Absolutely. Well, what's funny about Thin Lizzy, as much as I love them, if you ask me my favorite record it's like changed over the years. I've gotten into other ones, but yeah, Bad Reputation is pretty freaking awesome. Opium Trail's great. Southbound's amazing. Soldier of Fortune. Amazing.
Why is Thin Lizzy part of the new wave of British heavy metal for you?
No.
Why?
Because there's something. Realize I like new wave of British heavy metal, but Thin Lizzy is like so soulful that, like, to me, there's sort of like this sort of like mechanized kind of like the only one that's really an outlier for that would be like Living After Midnight, Judas Priest, or something along those lines, where even when they're like rocking and there's a groove to it, it doesn't groove like how Thin Lizzy grooves. And like maybe that's like Thin Lizzy is almost a band in and of itself. I think that, like, first of all, people only know Boys Are Back in Town. That's all they know.
It's a massive song.
It's a massive song. It's not even in my top 10 of my favorite songs from them, though. Like,
does Thin Lizzy do they kind of give you that dual solo thing that becomes so prevalent?
So there's the
in-
Iron Maiden version of that, and there's the Thin Lizzy version of that in my book. There's like
I
two
think the
ways
Iron
that
Maiden
to play.
version. I think Iron Maiden is their interpretation of the Thin Lizzy version.
And there's a
Sped up.
lot of cross pollination. Well, sure, and they're doing it like the Iron Maiden, because the Maiden way is usually just a lot of like kind of galloping.
Yeah.
It's like forward motion, and it's more of like it's just, and a lot of that is just Phil Lynott, right? If there's everything Thin Lizzy does, there's kind of a groove to.
Yes.
And Bad Reputation is an underrated record. Like people all know Jailbreak, that record, which
yeah.
Tonight there's gonna be a jailbreak, probably at the jail. Yeah, I mean it's somewhere in this town. Probably the jail is probably the place it's gonna be. But I love it too. But over the years, like, and then I became big into Johnny the Fox, big in the fighting. The record I listen to by Thin Lizzy the most these days is Bad Reputation. But Thin Lizzy is absolutely fantastic. Like, they're a better album band than people give them credit for.
That guitar work between the two players, I think,
so
kind of sets the foundation for what we see with a lot of heavier rock.
Yeah, Gorham and Robertson. They well, and it's often emulated, but hardly ever when the songs are that well written.
Mm-hmm.
And again, have like a roll to the rock, like it's rock and roll.
That's why on this list there's a ton of quote unquote heavy metal records. We don't really have that genre yet, so it's just rock records,
right?
You might call them hard rock records, and they're trying to get that Thin Lizzy sound, that dual guitar.
And then, you know what? You know why there's not a lot of it? It's hard. It's really hard to do, and it's really hard to do well. And you can be like, cool, I made a guitar harmony. That's not interesting. It's just not. It sounds like a guitar harmony, And I have over the years attempted to do it myself, and it's a great effect now and again. I think that the Commuter has got a great guitar harmony part, but it's hard to maintain. And like the thing that sucks about it, if somebody hits a wrong note, you're fucked.
Oof.
Like it sounds like the worst. It went from being like, this is like Elysian Fields, amazing, everyone's having a moment, to being like fuck up a Guitar Hero, like immediately. Even if it's not that bad of a fuck up, it doesn't matter. But
I'm gonna do something crazy.
Oh, and we mentioned In Color, Cheap Trick. That's a amazing record that, of course, people came back to after Budokan, that to realize was really good, but it was before Cheap Trick hit big. Yeah.
Are you a fan of the Carpenters?
I like a lot of Carpenter songs, and I think Karen Carpenter is one of the great tragic figures of music history.
Great drummer.
Amazing drummer. Not
Very
great. Like, amazing. Yeah.
Very underrated as a drummer. God damn it. I'm trying to hit pause. It's not pausing. Damn it. Okay.
Carpenters are pretty cool. Like, even though like I thought it was like, what, as a kid, surrounded by it, I was like, all right, close to you and stuff. All right, fine, whatever. But I appreciate it more now.
Very tame. Very tame.
Yeah, it's just
but there's a radio environment for that music that exists in that time that we didn't live in as music listening to young people.
Yeah, I was a kid. I was like, I'm not interested in easy listening. Give a shit about that. We got a Residence record in here too. That's right. I'm amazed. Like, Residence have barely come up in our discussions on these. Metallica, definitely, but Metallica, some great guitar harmony stuff for Metallica as well. But Metallica does not roll at all.
That's the thing about thrash.
Metallica.
I like them. The early stuff does, right? When they're four on the floor after the disco era, there's because people want to dance. Like, we forget at rock shows, people danced.
Yes. It's hard to believe now.
I think people forget that. You go to a Kiss show, you were dancing. They were like, we got to make music that gets people grooving.
You, baby. Yeah.
And I think people think that, rock has to not move, and that's not true. Especially, again, listening to the 77 stuff, the one thing I'm thinking when I'm listening to it, I was like, I could see you could play a lot of these records at the same club and people are going to keep dancing.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of internalized and regurgitated in cool and interesting ways in later years. Fingerprints by Residents are on here. That's the third record.
Mhm.
Has the distinction of being the one after Third Reich and Roll, so no one thinks about it. It's okay. Like, I mean, for my personal sensibilities, there's Duck Stab and Commercial Album and like everything else. And the Commercial Album is 80 and Duck Stab is 78. Duck Stab's amazing. The next record they do is pretty fantastic. What do we got? Steve Miller Band. I guess we got a.
I'm not a fan. Alice Cooper, also not the biggest Alice Cooper fan.
Okay. But Alice Cooper Band. Have you listened to Alice Cooper Band? Because I was about to give the shout out to Toys in the Attic and Rocks as the most underrated rock band of the 70s, but it's Alice Cooper Band. Because I think if you listen to Billion Dollar
Is he using
Babies,
the same musicians?
No. Hold on. Okay. Hold on. Don't get it twisted. It was a band, a full-on band with the singer of Alice Cooper before he went solo that kicks the hell out of anything Alice Cooper did. School's Out is an Alice Cooper Band song. Okay.
Great song.
Right? And the problem with that is that his solo career, you know, people think of like Feed My Frankenstein and all that. Okay, cool. Like fine. Like some of that's even okay. I like Alice Cooper Goes to Hell. I like a lot, but Love It to Death, Killer, School's Out, Billion Dollar Babies, 71 to 73. Those are four of the best 70s rock records you could ever listen to. I mean, if you and he plays a lot of those songs still these days and people's attributed to him. It's like, no, that's the band. That was, you know, Glenn Buxton and Dennis Dunaway, Neil Smith, like Caught in a Dream, I'm 18, amazing, like great stuff. Ballad of Dwight Fry. You know, I am telling you, like Alice Cooper and Alice Cooper Band should be distinguished because Alice Cooper Band is more or less unimpeachable, whereas Alice Cooper solo maybe a lower hit ratio than Kiss for my personal sensibilities. And the two records, there's a live record that comes out this year, and then there's this one which is Lace and Whiskey, and this is like he's deep in
whiskey. Is this record? Yeah.
I think he's deep in the alcoholism at this point.
Also, too, you have like this is also when you get to a certain level, there's songwriters.
Yeah.
It's a different. We're still in this era of a producer being a project manager, especially for the Alice Coopers of the world.
Sure, and that's what's so funny about the Alice Cooper Band is that was like those songs were written as a band, and they were like, again, I know people won't do it, but go listen to those early Alice Cooper records there because they're better than you think they're going to be, and it hits different than all that Alice Cooper solo stuff, and it's annoying to me. I think Spotify just has it as Alice Cooper, right?
I'm not sure.
So but no, I'm really annoyed by that because especially if I was like Dennis Dunaway, one of those guys that are still around, like it's not just Alice Cooper though. School's Out is Alice Cooper Band. No More Mr. Nice Guy, Alice Cooper Band. I'm 18, Alice Cooper Band. Like the first 3 of the 5 most listened to songs on Spotify, those are all Alice Cooper Band. Under My Wheels, Alice Cooper Band. This is like half the songs that are in like his top 10 most listened to songs on Spotify right now. They aren't Alice Cooper solo. Now, I'm not saying that Alice Cooper solo is invalid. I'm just saying it's different. And he went for a different thing. You know, there's that Friday the 13th movie that has a song is in and stuff.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
It's mostly not for me, but respect on. But if you and there's yet again going to mention a documentary. There's a 2-part documentary that came out like Showtime or something like some years back.
Oh, and Alice Cooper?
And Alice Cooper, and it's wild good. And like their live shows were insane. Like talk about Marilyn Manson. He ripped up everything from Alice Cooper.
There's live shows are still insane. I mean, Alice Cooper is still touring. Like let's not get it twisted. Alice Cooper is still touring, and he's in his 70s.
Absolutely, and and good for him. But like the classic Alice Cooper Band, you will listen to it, and you're like, wow, this cooks. Like, and it sounds like a rock band. Doesn't have dated production styles. Again, if you listen to those 4 records. And then if you like those, go back to Easy Action and then Plays Pretty, which used to be a psych record, but they re-recorded it. But like, there's a run of it's some of the best rock and roll from the 70s. And people just don't listen to it. And they don't even know because Alice Cooper's solo career has been so huge that they just attribute it to him. It's not just him and the dudes that he's around. It's a band of people that was the same band that played in high school together. And they made all these like super killer records. So there you go. Get down off the bully pulpit about Alice Cooper Band. Go listen to those records. School's Out, $1 Billion Babies, Killers, and Love to Death. Amazing. That Foghat live record actually is very good. I'm not can put that one back on for a second. Respect. I talked a lot of trash on Foghat, and it was Russell from Daughters of St. Crispin and United Sons of Toil. He was like, yeah, but have you listened to the Foghat live record from 77? I'm like, no, why would I listen to that? And he's like, you should listen to it. I will buy you a copy.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, oh, damn. All right. And so he bought me a copy of the Foghat. It just says Foghat Live. And then in the letters, it's got like pictures of them playing live. I'm like, all right, whatever. And I listened to it and I was like, all right. Yeah, I get it. I mean, I literally only knew it. Like, not only did I only know them from Slow Ride, which of course is in those same commercials that like
it's a good song.
Sounds of the 70s.
Slow Ride's a good song.
My James Burns from Police Teeth and Seminars and all that. He'd always just include fucking in it. So fucking slow ride, take it fucking easy. Which I think is
because it feels like they said that originally and they tried to take it out.
Yeah, it's amazing. That Foghat live record is pretty good, and I say that as someone that's like, it's not my favorite thing, but respect. I know that probably wasn't meant as an earnest comment, but I'm just saying.
The Damned.
Yeah, this is. I think they come out with 2 records this year, right?
Yes.
So
this is Music for Pleasure.
Music for Pleasure, good, completely swamped out by it's between Damned, which is one of the all-time great punk rock debuts, and Machine Gun Etiquette, which is one of the all-time great punk rock records. So Music for Pleasure, it's good. I never go to it. I listen to Machine Gun Etiquette. It's like a perfect record, and that comes out like in 79. It's, they're moving fast and furious on that one. If I remember right, that is the last one with Rat Scabies at that time. And then they have like there's like a Captain Sensible comes in, kind of brings his sensibilities to it. No, I guess Rat Scabies is a Machine Gun Etiquette too. I'm trying to remember is it Brian James? Brian James is who I'm thinking of. That's right. Brian James is out after that one. There's a damn documentary that's actually pretty good. It kind of gets into like the schisms between the Brian James era. Dudes, let's be clear, saying that the Brian James era is the only era of the Damned that is valid, which is crap and absurd, because Machine Gun Etiquette kicks the shit out of not just the rest of their discography, but like most punk rock records at the time. But it's interesting. It's worthwhile. I guess Captain Sensible thinks COVID is a myth, so that fucking blows.
Yikes. Jason Be Sad by T-Rex.
Jason, that's that's on one of the perfectly good T-Rex records that is not the 2 that I listen to all the time.
Dandy in the Underworld.
Yeah. What else is on that one? That's kind of like a later. It's like the 12th record or something. Like it's like again, T-Rex is another one that people like. All they know is Bang a Gong. Mm-hmm. Right, but they're all like really good, and those 2 that like the one before this is really called Futuristic Dragon. Amazing. That fucking rocks. 70. It must have been so cool to be an artist in the 70s. Just call your album Futuristic Dragon, have some titties on the cover, great. Slider, Electric Warrior are the 2 that I always go to. I've listened to those records ad nauseum, but yeah, this one's good. T-Rex is never bad.
There's a lot of the stuff that we're going to call glam later. That is very the Swede has some albums.
Yeah, is this what Swede record?
I don't know if there's a Mott the Hoople record. There's another kind of glammy.
Yeah, the Swede discography is so freaking hard to parse. This is okay. Off the Record, Fever of Love, Laura Lee. Yeah, that's their 5th record. It's okay. It's not great. It's Give Us a Wink is the year before that. That's got Action, which is one of my favorite songs of theirs. Lies in Your Eyes. What's after? That's April 77. Oh, they have their first greatest hits. the Golden Greats, which has Blockbuster, Hellraiser, Ballroom Blitz, 16s, Turn It Down. So it's they have their same year. They have talking about Sweet Now, or The Sweet if you prefer. Their 5th record and a best of compilation comes out, of which they have records after that too. Murder Say Nights, Radio Birdman just celebrated 50 years. Dennis Tech, who has been on Protonic Reversal, we talked about Radio Birdman ad nauseum. Yeah, what is there to say? Well, one of the great Australian punk rock bands. They're fucking timeless, revved up rock and roll badassery. It's hard to argue with.
Dolly Parton has 2 records in '77 as well.
One of them has what am I thinking of? I should have had my this right. She's had a lot of records. She has like crazy amount of records.
You know what? A record in '77. I didn't realize it was that old. Jonathan Richman.
Oh yeah. Well, that's Modern Lovers. It's not Jonathan Richman. It's
Jonathan Richman
Lovers.
and the Modern Lovers. Yeah, but yeah.
Well, it's Modern. It's after the fact. It's now Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers, but it was released as the Modern Lovers. I know that because Berserkly released it, which is a guy that was like friends with my old boss. And he dropped by to give me some music industry advice many years ago that I did not in fact follow. But I was like, oh yeah, Modern Lovers. I like that. That was that Dolly Parton record has a Higher and Higher, has her version of Higher and Higher, which is good. That was a big hit in like Germany, I think, something along those lines. What am I thinking of that? No, I was thinking of something different. Anyway, she's got a lot of. Oh man, she's showing a lot of leg on that cover.
She had like 2 records in '77.
She had a lot going on.
This is like the Roy Ayers music project. It's a Roy Ayers music project, and a lot of the hip hop samples that you get in the '90s. If you go back and listen to the '77 playlist, also listen for some of your favorite rap songs.
Because they sample the shit out of that.
They sample the shit out of all this music. And this Ramp album is actually a really cool experimental jazz record, and Everybody Loves the Sunshine. It's been sampled by a few groups. I know Brand Nubian was the first time I heard the sample. Another rapper named E-Rule out of LA used it in like '93. But check this record out. Because people had so much time, you could have a ton of side projects, time and cocaine, making some interesting music. Hey, I got a record out. I just, I saw so-and-so in the studio down the hall, and now we're going to do a record because we found another bowl.
I wonder what it would be like to be, well, I guess there's precedent for it, but be someone that didn't fuck around with that stuff back in the day, but like have the skills. And like, would you just be like the most productive person ever? Or would people not want to hang with you because you didn't want to like do drugs?
You know what I hear people say that they do, younger people? It's all about Adderall for them.
Sure.
It's all the culture, right? Adderall and getting a bunch of stuff done. And I go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But you remember, everybody has a limit. Whatever you're doing, be it booze, be it dope, be it caffeine, it's going to hit your body at some point.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I don't fuck with any of that. Hell, I was caffeine free for a long time. That didn't last, though. Oh, it was like 9 years.
That's a long time.
Long time. I came back to it, though.
Yeah, Dr. Claude, Daylight, the Tribe Called Quest Beneath Apple Bum song is on this record, too. Daylight, daylight, my life. I'm telling you, Ramp there's a bunch of samples on a lot of this music, and regardless of the genre of the music as well, there's samples all over it. Here is a group, and let's I want to close with this. There's again, I'll link the playlist again in the chat so you guys can check it out. Please.
Yeah, we could even do like another 3 hours just on this here.
Please go back and download all these playlists so I can feel good about myself for spending entirely too much time on this. But if you guys are aware,
Suspiria soundtrack by Goblin comes out this year too. Just got to give a shout out for that. Yeah, I'm not a big Argento fan, but I do love Goblin's soundtrack work. So shout out to them since we're going to be.
Boney M is, when we talk about music and genres, what's interesting about this time and a group like Boney M is it breaks up this idea of what is authentically something music, right? Like what is
Mhm.
white music? What is black music? And the more I learned about music history and what is quote unquote black music, I was like, oh, this doesn't seem like it was all that black. Boney M, and you see the cover, there's a bunch of Negroes from Germany and
Mhm.
France. The producer of Boney M is a man by the name of Frank Farian, and you might remember that name because he also produced Milli Vanilli. Through Boney M, Frank Farian was an aspiring musician and singer,
Mhm.
and he tried his luck and had some mild successes where he's from. I believe he's German, and he goes, "I really like black music, right? This is what they called it, soul music, black music,
Right.
and I want to make a record." And they were like, "You can't make a record. You're not black." He's like, "No, no, 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 no. I'm going to make a record of
Uh,
this music that I love."
yeah.
He makes a record, doesn't move. Record label's like, "Look, dude, we told you you're not black." And he
Yeah.
goes, "Okay, fine." So he goes and records what will be Boney M by lowering the speed for his voice for the male parts.
To make it sound deeper.
Yep. Increasing the speed for the female
Wow.
parts. Sings it all, does it all,
The
turns
Black
it in as
ingenuity.
Boney M. They're like, "This is great. Do you have a band?" "Yes, I do." He goes and finds capable female singers. And
Uh-huh.
since he wants the male voice to be kind of the front of the band,
Yeah.
he finds the black guy in Boney M who kind of freakishly to me looks like Huey Newton. And it just fucks me up every time I see it. I was like, I don't like this because I don't want to see Huey Newton all doing these cokey dances.
Yeah.
But he finds this guy's a DJ, and he finds him and he goes, "Hey, I got this gig for you. You're basically going to be a mime." Eventually, that guy got mad and he wanted to sing. And Farron was like,
They
"You can't
always
really
do. That
sing."
never lasts. You got to keep
He
up like an
sang a
album and
background on
stack them, or
he sang a background on one song, but these Boney M songs become massive international hits.
yeah. Oh,
They're
sure,
all
absolutely.
in black music, sang by a white European.
A German dude. Yeah, I know. Fucking
Yeah.
awesome. That's great.
white
I didn't
European.
know any of that. I kind of, I vaguely remember that Boney M, like, they didn't write their songs, right? That is what I remember, but like I don't.
No, Frank Farian. That's all. Well, eventually the girls were singing the backgrounds.
Yeah.
They actually are singers,
Yeah,
but it was always him. He did that. Then they quit.
Fascinating.
Right? They all get tired
Yeah.
of it. They quit, and they make tons of money. I think the guy didn't make that much money, but anyway, Frank Farian wants to do it again after he hears "Girl, You Know It's True" by a
Mhm.
group called Newmark from Baltimore.
Right.
So another
Which
thing people
leads
don't know
to-
about Milli Vanilli, it actually was released. That song was released by a group out of Baltimore
act.
called Newmark.
Yeah.
And he replayed everything and got singers to sing everything, and then the rest is history. But yeah, that for me is a really kind of interesting moment when we think about this music and what genre belongs to what people, because another thing about this era of music is we're real serious about what Negroes can listen to and what white people can listen to.
There's a clear divide for
Yes.
sure. Like it's and they're two different charts. You know, like they were calling it. Well, I don't remember when they actually made that. I should know this. I just watched because they talked about it in the Stax documentary, but it was like literally at one point like the black charts, right? If I remember
Yeah.
correctly. And
Oh,
and
yeah,
they,
no, yeah,
And they
yeah.
called it something different after that. But
And this is also why MTV is so afraid to play quote unquote black music,
which David
because-
Bowie challenged him on in that interview, and they like had no good answer.
no, well, Middle America.
Yeah.
But what's
Like,
funny is when you think of
okay.
that answer today, you're like, Middle America. Don't most of these Negroes come from Ohio? Like, I think they're fine with them.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be all right.
But it's this idea because it's so, they're like, hey, this black music is really loose. They got naked people on the cover. We can't have that. But Duran, Girls on Film is totally fine. We'll just play it at night.
Yeah. Exactly.
But these demarcating lines of racial purity within the music genres are so hilarious, especially when you get to disco.
Well, and think about it now, right? And think about like how it's viewed now, and we've come a long way, and we've come Not
and
far
coming
at all.
nowhere, right? Because we
At
have
the same
Afro punk,
time.
and that's what effed it all up. It's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right, yeah. It's
Well,
just
because everything gets externalized in that same way disco was internalized. Again, once the Rolling Stones, and I think Missy's a great song, but once the Rolling Stones are doing a disco song, Kiss is doing a disco song, it's like, okay, that's at some point that's been mainstream. So how long is that going to be creatively viable still? And for people like Jojo Moroder, they tried to keep it creatively viable, but it was hard to argue with the fact that stuff like Donna Summer dominated the charts.
yes.
And it's like, was that the best written songs ever? No, not really. But I mean, I feel Love is like, you got to give it up. It's like okay, that's pretty cool. And then there's a bunch. It's like anything else. There's a bunch of crappier versions of that that are like less interesting as time goes on. And as much as you have, when that came out, Bowie, Blondie, they were all they were freaking like, this song's great. They were given like major props. Human League more or less built their genre around it, right? Which led to like new wave, like and that kind of thing, because it hit because it was the right time and because it was the right combination of they weren't calling it at the time, but Donna Summer being like a diva. Right. And then Jojo Moroder being this like, oh yeah, Jojo, well, that guy is like no joke. He like really knows that sound. And then boy did he. But respect, he didn't just do huge hits. Like he ran a recording studio that like the Stones and ELO and Deep Purple and Queen and Elton John worked at, and he was like composing soundtracks and stuff. I mean, like, look, never ending story, right? Like a few years later, like he's a massive contributor to like electronic music. It's not just the one thing. Whereas there's a lot of the disco stars are just like, no, they're just the one thing. That's all they did.
That's what they
and like some of them, it's like, oh yeah, that song, that's like their high watermark. Don't even bother with anything else. It's not. I'm not saying that's the case with Donna Summer. I'm just saying that like
the sad thing about this show, what it's really ruined for me, and we can leave, is Hall & Oates. This show has destroyed Hall & Oates for me.
Hall & Oates found dead in a ditch.
All I knew was the hits.
Yeah.
She's a Man Eater, Private Eyes.
Yeah. Out of Touch.
Sarah Smile. Oh, Out of Touch?
Yeah.
That's a great song.
It's a great tune. Yeah.
Please, I challenge all of you. Listen to any full Hall & Oates record. Another thing on this show, we have a lot of Hall & Oates albums on these lists. Yeah. And there's not a lot of hits.
Rich Girl is 77, by the way. That came out January 77.
Oh, so, okay.
That's actually
you know what? I couldn't even get to Rich Girl because I was like, this song sucks.
From the album Bigger Than Both of Us. Is it though?
It's Bigger Than Both of Us. The amount of filler and Hall & Oates recorded.
That is, and that's a Daryl Hall tune.
Is he the filler guy? Is Oates right?
I think Oates is the. No, I think Oates. God, I don't know if I should comment on that. I'm not sure. I think Daryl Hall is kind of the guy that has written more of the hits.
Or was he just the blonde pretty boy that got the credit for it?
I don't know. I know he has Live from Daryl's House on that show where they pretend like punk rock didn't exist.
Live from Daryl's House. I would love to go. It always looks so cool. I wish this show was live from Daryl's house, and then we could be like, it's Foghat, and then all of a sudden Foghat just comes.
They show up.
And play.
Like,
we
sit there. Like, that live record goes. Hey, tell me about Slow Ride. How'd you get that breakdown?
Like and subscribe. All right.
Okay, great. I'm all in, man. So they could do to be a good hang.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
So Rich Girl comes out on that 77 record, which I think is mostly garbage.
It's not a very good record.
Most of the records aren't very good. They're a singles band. Like
there are a lot of singles bands. You hate to believe that they're alive because you know why? The 80s told us a different story.
Absolutely. And people think like, oh, they have that one banger record. Like bullshit. They have like 20 records and like all the songs you're thinking of, there's like one on each one.
No. As the man that puts these things together, no.
And they do, and they do things like they cover that Righteous Brothers song on that 81, which is just like, they didn't do, that's not their song though. They said a cover of it. And you'd be like, Because you're thinking like, there's got to be more than just Private Eyes on this. No. I mean, there is, but like nothing that you can care about. Like it's not there. Like
if there's one person, and there's always someone in the comments that tells you forgot something or you said, and look, I've say things wrong. I confuse dates. There's a lot of things to remember when you do this much weird shit on this channel. And one thing I will say is I don't know anyone that's a deep Hall & Oates cuts person. Because I'm sure they exist, and I hope they comment. I hope you comment to tell me I'm wrong, but just like I never met a black person that's like, I love Gone with the Wind and Birth.
Let me tell you why there aren't any deep cuts Hall & Oates fans. Because those deep cuts are trash from the trash can.
Dude, I'm phoning it in.
Not good, man. You
phoning
think they are.
Here's
what we're going to do. People are going to hear this. They're going to go back and listen to all these goddamn records and be like, damn, they were right.
Listen to
I know. Don't even bother. Don't bother.
Listen to some of your favorite records. That Earth, Wind and Fire record. Put it on. It's a pretty decent record, but it's gonna have a lot of parts, and you're like, oh, word. Hey, I forgot this song was on here.
Yeah.
This song is not very good. It's again. I've never met the deep cut Hall & Oates person, and if you know a black person, it's like I love Gone with the Wind.
They have those deep cuts record.
Yeah.
Look, there are some bands that are tailor made for a greatest hits compilation. Hall & Oates is one of them.
Oh my god, yes. Oh my god, yes.
Like it's there's more bad than
in the album era. Let's add this. Let's add that caveat. In the album era, because the singles eras people don't count. They just release singles. In the album era, Hall & Oates. If you are a Hall & Oates fan and you tell me that you like B-sides and shit from Hall & Oates,
bullshit. You lying.
Bullshit. Bullshit.
Yeah, we're never gonna get invited to Daryl Hall's house at this point. Talking this trash.
Can you imagine Daryl Hall fucking like flipping his hair at us and shit like that, flipping that weave at us, and telling us that you're never gonna make it in this business.
The hell with these petty ass little bitches.
But you wrote some filler. That's all.
Yeah, you wrote more filler than hits. Granted, whatever. I mean, like
your hits paid for a lot of people's lives. Daryl Hall and John Oates.
Yeah. Look,
but
all I'm saying, if you're gonna put it on aggregate total of like objective monoculture success versus not, okay, but I have better deep cuts than Hall & Oates.
And I'll add this right before we leave. This is a great year for country music. If you want to get into country, if you're like, I don't know about that stuff, F all this new stuff that sounds like really crappy hip hop.
Got my truck and my girl and a book.
If you want to hear real country songs about shooting people and doing copious amounts of drugs, telling your boss to go F himself, this is a great year for that country music because there's a ton of it because it was making money. What was that show? I know you watched
shove it. Oh, Tales from Tour Bus.
Nope. The show that came out when we were kids, and I know you watched this. The country show.
Yeah.
Out of Bakersfield. The country show. The country variety show.
Hee-haw.
Hee-haw.
I said it. Yeah.
Conan's like, why are you talking about my family like that?
How
dare you, motherfucker? No, I ain't shitting on Living Color. You don't shit on hee-haw.
I am not. That is not where I'm from.
Hey, don't act like it's that far away. It's just
it's not that far away. But look, you got hee-haw and you got corn, and I don't like either of them things. But Johnny Paycheck is great. Take the Shop and Shove. It's a great record.
He's got 2 records this year. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, there's a lot of good country. By the way, Conan Neutron, The Secret Friends on tour next month. San Francisco, September 19th, Bottom of the Hill. San Pedro at the Sardine on the 20th. San Diego, Red Brontosaurus Records on the 21st. 22nd, Yucca Valley Tap Room in Phoenix. We got Detroit with God Bullies, October 11th. We've got shows with Dead Bob and Turf Club in Minneapolis, or St. Paul, excuse me, and at Bottom Lounge in Chicago coming up in November. NeutronFriends.bandcamp.com, PlatoniCreystal.com for my show. Alan Johannes of 11, Queens of the Stone Age and Desert Sessions, all that. Soundgarden, Chris Cornell solo record, all that. He's coming on tomorrow. And then I just had Upright Forums on. That's still Patreon only, $1 a month, patreon.com/Protonic Movie Night Extravaganza. We have Sunshine, that Danny Boyle movie that's totally messed up.
I love
and
that
awesome.
movie. I love that movie.
We're doing that next week. I'm excited for that. That's gonna be really cool. And then Jason, you're coming on to do Starship Troopers. We've never done Starship Troopers, so you're coming out at the end of the month for Forrest's birthday for that one.
Okay.
So crossovers all over.
I thought we did Starship Troopers before for some reason. Maybe Ben Burgess and I did it, but
yeah,
that's fine. I don't mind rewatching.
We've never done it as an episode on Movie Night Extravaganza. For sure. Those guys get it confused, and I'm always the one where it's like, no, we definitely didn't do it because I wasn't on that. So like it's
look at Strom. Yeehaw was indeed filmed in Nashville. The South will rise again.
Yeah, I'm
it's
still working on it.
Is in Bakersfield.
Yeah, but I like look.
Nothing is filmed in Bakersfield, dude. What's filmed in Bakersfield? Gang violence.
I mean, look, Buck Owens, like is
Buck Owens,
it's Buck Owens of the Buckaroos is great. Merle Haggard's great. I'm not saying there's not a lot of good stuff that came from Bakersfield. I'm just saying that like I came from like 3 or 4 towns up from that. Nothing came from Modesto except for Granddaddy, Fiverr, Lacey and Scott Peterson, George Lucas, and me.
You gotta admit, George Lucas.
Yeah. We went to the same high school, not at the same time though.
That'd be weird. That would fly.
I'm very well preserved.
Again, said 1977. What happens in 1977? Jason's born, Conan's born, Star Wars is born.
That's right.
And Elvis dies. That's all you need to know.
That's all I gotta know.
That's all you need to know. Great year. Thank you guys very much. I'll be back on Monday. It is my birthday. We're gonna do a special birthday stream. And this channel, I believe, will be back tomorrow with Ben Burgess. I'm not totally sure, but regardless, Monday will definitely be back. Thank you guys for watching. Conan, thank you for taking your time to be a part of this very fun discussion.
Always a pleasure.
Put on the outfit. I wasn't expecting you to put on the outfit. I figured you'd be more dressed down. This is supposed to be your Mr. Rogers. Like you take off.
I know. I can't.
And put on the cardigan and.
I get too invested.
Okay,
that's the thing. If I get invested, I want to put on a show. And I want to put on a show, then I add these elements to it. It's the same thing, It's the same thing about making it work somehow. Like this thing is supposed to be fun. All right.
Well, I appreciate you and love you like a play cousin. Thank you guys so much, and we are out.
Back when Russia was the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, and they'd say, "Oh, but aren't you so glad that you're in America?" I said, "Well, I know a lot of Russian filmmakers. They have a lot more freedom than I have. All they have to do is be careful about criticizing the government."